Hi, welcome back guys. This is your friend, Cabbage Head Fanfics. Back with amazing fanfiction. This is the second part of What If Deku Had Pokemon Egg Quirk. Now before starting, please give this video a like and subscribe to the channel if you want more videos like this. Now let's get into the fanfic. Izuku sits down at the picnic table with his mom back at UA. I still can't believe I won. Nimbus is busy cleaning off Springy, who just lays on a tree branch lazily. Most of the others are just spread out, exploring the park area more. His mom smiles. I have to say you did well. Even though you did worry me, I loved seeing you have fun. Though I have to ask, what happened to your teeth? I know they weren't that sharp before. Oh yeah, he sighs. It seems to be a side effect of my quirk. It even changed my eye color. There's no food on the table yet. She pets Nebi as he floats over. That's a bit worrying, but hopefully it's harmless. Now where is Toshinori? He said he would get us some food. Nebi nuzzles her palm. I am here, with some burgers. Toshinori walks over, holding 3 bags in his hands. Sorry for the delay, Lunch Rush needed me to get some ingredients for him before he'd agree to make this. He sits the bags on the table. Izuku opens his bag, starting to eat the cheeseburger. Is Kavacha with you? Toshinori nods as he takes a bite, pointing towards a tree. Kavacha can be seen fighting a horde of his Pokemon, probably for training. Mighty walks over to him. Good job, Izuku. You managed to win without any of us, so just imagine how good of a hero you'll be when you have us. Before he can respond, Mighty walks away again, chucking aura spheres at Kavacha. His mom smiles at them. Oh yeah, I have a bit of a surprise. I'm getting a teaching license. Izuku nearly chokes on his burger, coughing as he regains his breath. You are? But doesn't that take a while? Well, normally it does, but you know how Nedzu is. She bites into her food, swallowing before speaking. I'll work as a teacher's assistant after internships, helping teach hero law. Izuku looks at Toshinori. If she gets a teaching license before you, I'm never letting you live it down. He goes back to eating. Toshinori sighs. Don't worry, I've also been looking into getting one. Eventually I'll have to retire from being a hero, but teaching could satisfy my need to help. Despite his damaged stomach, he still manages to finish his burger first. His mom smiles. That's good. From what Izuku has told me, your teaching skills are lackluster. She glances at his empty bag. You really love American food? Yes, even though it isn't good for me, I love it. Toshinori chuckles. Izuku uses soft-boiled on Toshinori. I don't know if that worked, but hopefully it helps how little you take care of yourself. Toshinori sighs, even as Izuku's mom laughs at it. He keeps eating his food, listening to idle chatter from the 2 adults as he unwinds from the day's fighting. Tenya runs through the halls of the hospital, swerving between workers as he barely holds back the urge to use his quirk. His eyes scan the door numbers, trying to find the right one. Brother! He bursts through the door. His brother lays on the hospital bed, still wearing his suit of armor, though the color has shifted to a dark purple. His eyes are closed, even as he clutches a katana to his itzy. Someone hovers by the bed. Tenya quickly recognizes them as the Vigilante hybrid. How could you Thash? Hey, I didn't do this. Hybrid blocks his kick. I'm the one who brought him here. Stain, the hero killer, attacked him. The Vigilante looks oddly similar to Ace. Tenya steps back, clenching his fists. Why are you still here then? Shouldn't only family members be allowed to visit my brother? Hybrid nods. Normally, yeah, but I'm the only one here who can actually see his condition. He floats down to be on eye level with him. I'll be honest with you. Your brother died, and I had to force life back into him. Because of that, now he's in an unstable condition. He gestures at the heart monitor. Every few seconds, it flatlines before stuttering back into a violent heartbeat. Tenya steps closer to his brother, his hero. Will he even live? Will he be able to be a hero? I can't lose him. The Vigilante leans on the edge of the bed. He'll be in a coma for a week or 2, but then he should stabilize. But after that, it'll take at least a month for him to do the physical therapy he'll need. Tenya stands there, frozen for a moment. He won't be able to intern with his brother, and it'll be far too long before Tensei can go back to being a hero. He leans over him, crying as he holds onto his brother's hand. How could the hero killer think he was unworthy of being a hero? Tensei was kind, cared for civilians, helped sidekicks start their careers, and even rehabilitated countless vigilantes. He was a true hero, now stuck in a hospital bed thanks to the delusions of a madman. Stain can't get away with this. He won't get away with this. Izuku walks through the rain towards the school. The rain falling down onto him feels oddly soothing, so he just keeps walking slowly through it. This is not the time for a leisurely stroll. Ida zooms forward, grabbing onto his hand and pulling him along. Izuku flinches at the skin contact, but he's forced to speed up to match Ida's pace, only stopping once they get inside. Ida, you know I don't like touch? He yanks his hand away. Ida turns to him. Sorry, I wasn't thinking. Even as he says that, his aura is full of malice towards someone, along with a hint of satisfaction. No regret or apology. I can tell that you're lying, you know. He teleports away before Ida can say anything. Ida normally isn't like that, so something else has to have happened. Izuku sits in his seat, starting to research whatever could have happened. After a while, Aizawa walks into the room, Stalker following him. Alright, today we have an important class. You'll be picking your hero names. The class erupts with noise, Izuku using disarming voice to quiet everyone. Aizawa sighs. First, let's show the internship offers. As you know, heroes who see your potential offer you a chance for proper field training. Don't waste the chance. He clicks a remote. The screen behind him changes to show the offers. Kaken and Todoroki have the most, Tokage and Tokoyami close behind, with everyone else being much lower. Izuku can see about 50 offers for himself. A bit disappointing since he literally got first place, but still more than some others. Kaminari leans forward. Hey, why did Midoriya get so few offers compared to the others on the podium? Because heroes can be stupid. Aizawa sighs as Stalker climbs onto his back. Most of them thought he was too feral for them. He turns the screen off. He picks up Stalker, sitting him by his sleeping bag. With that settled, even if you didn't get picked, you'll be working with pros. Gaining not only experience, but also reputation. If you have a hero name, they'll be able to connect your reputation to it. Make sure to pick something appropriate or you'll regret it. Midnight bursts into the room. If you couldn't tell by his hero name, Eraserhead here SCKS with creativity, so I'm taking care of this lesson. Aizawa crawls into his sleeping bag as Midnight takes his place at the podium. Your hero name may be the name the world remembers you by. Make sure it's a good one. She sets a 15-minute timer for them to decide. Izuku already has an idea, but he needs permission for it. He holds his hands out, elemental power surging in his palms with longing, and he awakens in the void once again. Arceus forms in front of him. Thou has appeared in my realm once more. What question does thou have for me? Arceus, I wish to use your name as my hero name. That acceptable? Izuku feels a surge of amusement and pride flow throughout the void, sinking into his skin and soul. The deity before him leans forward. I would be honored to have thee use my name. Thou is the one to receive my blessing, therefore using my name is a fitting result. The moment is interrupted by a sudden sensation on his real body, one he can't identify. What? Do you know what happened? He looks up. Arceus sighs. It appears that the Swift One has plans brewing in his mind. Keep an eye on him before the blade tears out the soul. Arceus doesn't explain, golden light wrapping around his soul. Before he's brought back to reality. Looking over at Ida, he can see an egg-shaped object hidden in a bag under his desk. It seems him falling asleep to speak to Arceus made the egg form, and Ida immediately stole it. It's odd enough that he tries to ignore the instant reaction of anger. He walks over to Todoroki instead. Struggling with yours? Todoroki nods. I'm tempted to just go with my name, but I feel like that's a bad idea. He pets Tayumi in his lap. Izuku taps his chin. Well, maybe the reborn hero, Hope? Since Endeavor has his name for endeavoring towards a goal, you could have yours be for hoping to be different from him. It's like taking his name and twisting it in a way he'd hate. Izuku grins. The name is scribbled onto the board in an instant. He'll hate it. It's perfect. Todoroki smiles slightly at him. After a while, the time is up, everyone having to present their names. Aoyama goes up first. The shining hero, I cannot stop twinkling. Izuku raises his hand. Maybe just go with dazzle? That full sentence will make people hate trying to say your name. It feels rude to say, but someone had to say it. Aoyama pouts. Fine, I understand. Most of the names after that were more typical, like Froppy from Tsu and Uravity from Uraraka. Tokoyami picking Tsukuyami is expected, since he and Dark Shadow have been gushing about that name idea for a while. Kaken walks up to the podium, holding up his whiteboard. I'm the explosive hero, Nitro. Scorch stands beside him, grinning. Short and sweet, perfect. Midnight claps her hands together. Easy for civilians to remember, and it can be terrifying to some villains. I approve. She sends him back to his seat. Toga goes up next. You can call me the vampiric hero, Plasmorph. She grins as she holds up her whiteboard. Wraith is just sitting on her shoulder, watching the class carefully. Midnight puts her hand to her chin. That's an interesting name choice, I'll say. Mixing another name for BLD with Morph since you can disguise yourself. I accept it, it's very fitting. She slaps her WHP against her palm as Toga walks back. Next up is Kaminari, worriedly holding his whiteboard to his ear. Izuku smiles at him, watching some confidence grow in his eyes. I'm the thunder hero, Reiku. He holds up his whiteboard, trying to put on a confident grin. Midnight nods. Nice, a reference to a pre-Quirk game. Can't get copyrighted from it, so it's allowed. Of course she knows about Pokemon, she teaches history, duh. He should have expected that. Mina walks up next after getting her initial name rejected. Call me the acidic hero, Meltdown. She still seems a bit pouty about her first name. Much better than Alien Queen, I approve. Midnight sends her back to her seat. Todoroki walks up with Tayumi following him, placing down his whiteboard. I'm the reborn hero, Hope. Tayumi rubs against his leg happily. All the girls coo as he bends down to pet her. Midnight smiles. Such a sweet name, simple yet memorable. You're all set? She sends him back, though she pets Tayumi first. After a while, all that's left is Izuku. He lets out his Pokemon so they can watch as he presents his name, walking up to the podium with Ace beside him. I am the origin hero, Arcus. Ace nuzzles his cheek. Mighty grins from the back of the room. Nice, it fits. Now that's the name of a hero. He pets Nebi beside him. Are you sure that's a good idea? Midnight tilts her head. Using the name of a deity of the game when your quirk could create it seems like an unwise decision. Izuku waves away her concern. Oh, it's fine, I just asked Arceus for permission. He smiles. You asked? She takes a deep breath. Nope. Not paid enough for this. Just take the name and go. She waves him back to his seat. Mighty snickers into his paw. I think you broke her. Aizawa gets up out of his bag. Alright, now all your names have been chosen. Since your internships are in a week, I'll pass out these papers with the lists of offers. None of you got 0 offers, so we don't have to worry about that. He passes out some papers. On his own paper, Izuku sees a mixture of heroes. Endeavor probably only offered for him to fight Todoroki, so he's absolutely not an option. Most of the others are just too flashy for him. Before he can decide, he hears Momo's voice. Maybe I should go with Uwabami? Izuku immediately teleports beside her. Don't go with her. A friend of mine knows a third year who regretted going with her. He pulls out his phone, texting Peekaboo to send his friend to 1A. She jumps from his sudden appearance, but she turns to him. Are you sure? She seems like a decent hero. A blue-haired girl bursts into the room, floating over to them. Hi, I'm Nijire. Mirio told me to look for the girl next to the green boy, so I'm guessing you're the one going with Uwabami? When Momo nods, Nijire immediately grimaces. Izuku heads back to his seat as she basically lectures Momo on how bad that would go. He looks back at his own list after that. The most appealing option is Apex. He's a Twilight hero, mostly doing underground work while still doing some public work. Apex often works alongside Night Eye and Eraserhead, so that's already a sign in his favor. His quirk is relatively unknown, but him being known as the Beastmaster hero seems promising. He chooses Apex, letting Ace carry his paper to turn it in. He has a good feeling about this hero. Izuku sits down at his table during lunch. So, what hero names did you guys have? I assume Mina probably already told mine. Tokage nods. Yep, she did. I went with Fragtile. I split into fragments, and I have the quirk of a reptile. She grins, splitting her hand off her arm. It just makes you sound fragile? Minoma chuckles. Her hand smacks his head. I don't want to hear a word from you, metronome. Stealing your hero name from a move. At least mine was creative. She goes to flick his head. Shinso grabs her hand, tossing it away. I just called myself Underdog. Simple and sweet, it lets people underestimate me easily anyways. Izuku takes a bite out of the pizza Toshinori gave him on his way to lunch. So, what internships does everyone have? Personally, I'm going for Apex. He feeds a piece of it to Ace. Minoma grins. That's perfect, I got him too. I don't know why I got an offer from a Beastmaster, but I'd be foolish to not at least try it out. He eats his rice. Loki slides up onto the table, so he feeds them some too. Tokage leans back, taking a bite of tempura and talking with her mouth full. That's his way of saying he's too curious to resist. She dodges a smack. I'm going with Eraserhead. While we don't have similar quirks, he can still teach me some underground tips. Mina leans forward. Well, I'm going with Snipe. My quirk can be useful, but I probably need some weapons too. She chuckles. Tokoyami closes his lunchbox, wiping off his beak. I have decided to go with Pucks. Not only is he a fellow avian, but he should be able to show me many tips I can use to be a better hero. Todoroki is going for him too. I wonder why he didn't go with his dad. Dark Shadow pops up, a curious and worried look on her face. Shinso raises an eyebrow. That's surprising. He puts down his empty bowl. I'm going with Ms. Joke. Who knows, maybe she'll let me vandalize a hero agency like her class did? He chuckles, fidgeting with 2 magnets in his hands. Toga tosses her tonkatsu into the air. I'm going with Edge Shot, could be some nice underground training. She cuts it in half with her knife, eating the pieces before Wraith steals them. An explosion covers the table with smoke, Izuku having to let Nimbus out so he can blow it all away. May, didn't power loaders say to keep the inventions in the lab? May looks up at him, holding a piece of machinery in her hands. Well, inspiration can't adhere to rules, so I make what I want when I want. Crafty chuckles, using a handmade tool to replace the exploded battery with a new one. Izuku opens his mouth to argue with her before shutting it, grinning. He pulls out his Pokeballs, letting all his Pokemon out. If you guys get that, I'll have Mom fix her special recipe. Mighty grins. A good chase would be nice, I haven't gotten enough training recently. He closes his eyes, calm mind quickly boosting his stats. She screeches as all of his Pokemon rush towards her, sprinting away from the small horde as the whole table erupts with laughter. When they get to English, Izuku mostly zones out, since he's already pretty good at it. He still can't help but notice the egg in Ida's bag, feeding off of his rage. Mighty? Yes, Izuku? What do you need? Mighty leans against the back wall of the classroom. The only other Pokemon of his out is Ecto, playing with Loki over in the corner of the room. Izuku sighs, tapping his pencil on the table. Do you think emotions can affect what egg someone gets? He puts his paw to his chin. I think it can. After all, Bakugo now probably would have gotten a calmer fire starter, like Blaziken. Instead, his toxic personality as a kid led to the feistier Incineroar. Yeah, true. At least Bakugo changing made Scorch act kinder too. Izuku glances over, seeing Wraith joining the other two. It seems like they're playing tag, Ecto and Wraith running from Loki, sliding under chairs and tables. Mighty sighs. This is about Ida, isn't it? Even without aura, he can feel Mighty's gaze locked on him. Izuku reluctantly nods. He idly works on the assignment. Yeah. The egg feels like his, but it seems warped. I'm worried about what will come out, and what Ida will do with it. Unfortunately, all we can do is wait. Mighty holds his own Pokeball in his palm. The others and I have agreed to keep a lookout, so we'll let you know if he starts acting even more oddly. That's all we can do. He smiles softly. Thanks, Mighty. He sighs as he focuses on the assignment. Hero training was mostly just sparring, which let him train up his Pokemon some. Aizawa looks at him as the class empties out. Midoriya, I need to have a word with you. His friends stop, glancing at him. Alone. Once the class empties out, Izuku walks up to him. What did you need from me? His teacher opens his mouth and he explains the details of how the Vigilante hybrid came into existence from the LOV. How Shigaraki may have changed. The odd Intelion which was apparently the thing with the unsettling eyes. Even the fact that they somehow had new DNA. Izuku steps back. You're telling me that not only did they apparently steal DNA from Ace, but they used this to mutilate Pokemon and humans alike? Feral rage boils in his mind, but he takes a deep breath, holding it back. Aizawa nods, pulling out some documents. Yes, unfortunately. Just look at these. He flips them around so Izuku can see them. A pile of bodies were found at the bottom of Lake Biwa. Not only were they decent corpses, but all of them had mutilated bodies, seemingly from their quirks rejecting something that altered their DNA. The lights in the room flash, the temperature in the room shifting wildly as he tries to get his quirk under control. What the hell? It's not the worst thing I've seen, but it's up there. That's why I censored the pictures, kid. Aizawa takes the documents back. Principal Netsu drops out of the vents. Don't worry. Because of this worrying information, I've increased my efforts to try and find the leak. Immoral experiments like this are unforgivable. He bares his teeth for a moment before stopping. Izuku steps back. I need to go. He teleports of the room, going straight to his bed. He doesn't know what he's feeling. Rage is obvious, though now it's aimed solely at All for One and that Med Doctor. Maybe grief? So many of his Pokemon have been mutilated. Helplessness is there too, he can't even stop them at his current strength. All he can do for now is let his Pokemon out. They all immediately tackle him with hugs, knocking him onto his back. You can cry, Izuku. It's understandable. Mighty pats his head. The dam immediately bursts, tears flowing out of his eyes as he finally starts to sob. For once, he leans into the touches, hugging Ace as Rek wraps around him. Later in the day, Izuku walks into the hatchery. He spots Kaminari, cuddling his egg as he leans against a rock. Hey Midoriya. He winces when he looks up. Are you okay? Izuku shrugs. Could be better. While he managed to stop crying, the headache that came from it is not very appreciated. Kaminari snuggles his chin into the egg, making Izuku feel oddly warm inside. I can't wait to see what this egg is. I've never had a pet before. I'll definitely take good care of it though. I'm not gonna neglect a Pokemon. He smiles. He looks over at the volcano-themed section of the room with disdain before sitting down beside him. I'm sure you'll take care of it well. He rubs his eyes some. I'll try my best. He stretches out. His socks are mismatched, one black and the other white with purple stars. Tokage suddenly appears, holding Nebi in her hands. Alright, guess I'm here now. Nebi was worried about you, apparently. She looks down. Geez Greenie, you look like Sheet. Do you know what happened to him, Sparks? Kaminari blinks, looking up. Me? I don't know. I didn't ask since I don't usually do the best with helping with all that mental stuff. Izuku smiles weakly. I'm fine. I'll talk about it tomorrow, I promise, but can I just have today to relax? He looks up, yawning as he rubs his still sore eyes. Yeah, I'll definitely let you rest. I'm getting the group together to talk about it tomorrow though. You're coming too, Sparks? She crouches down. Like usual, she's just wearing an oversized shirt. Kaminari tilts his head at her. Why am I coming? I mean I appreciate it, but still. Tokage sits Nebi on the ground. First off, you're Greenie's friend. Second off, you're a cutie. She grins. As Kaminari blushes, Izuku sighs. Tokage, stop teasing my friends. He feels something from his quirk. Huh? Oh, the egg. He turns to the side. The egg shakes in Kaminari's arms, cracks slowly forming on it as a glow emanates from them. Before they can react more than panicking, The egg shatters, light shining out of it. When the light fades, he almost doesn't see the Pokemon. Looking into Kaminari's hands, he can see a small arachnid. Yellow fur covers its body, spiked from static. Mandibles point downward from the bottom of its face. Its 4 tiny feet are a vibrant blue, matching with all 4 of its eyes that look up at them. Kaminari grins, holding her up in the air. She's so cute. I'm gonna name her Zip Zap. She lightly bites on his palm, skiing out electricity. Tokage reaches over, petting her gently. Ah, she's so cute. A bit bigger than the Pokédex size, but probably for the best, heh. Zip Zap rubs against her hand, making a happy clicking noise. Yeah, but she's still so cute. Kaminari holds her to his cheek, feeling her rubbing against it. Izuku turns to Nebi, now seeing Ace with him. Both of you were worried after earlier, huh? Ace nods, floating a Pokeball to him before nuzzling against his chin. Knew it. Kaminari, take this? Oh. He takes the ball. I have to use your phone to do this, right? As if it heard Kaminari, the ARC phone floats out of Izuku's pocket and over to him. It's the ARC phone, I shouldn't be surprised. He turns the Pokeball into a quick ball, tapping it on Zip Zap's head. Tokage grins. Nice. She turns to Izuku. Greenie, you need to go ahead and sleep. No, I don't, I'm fine. Izuku takes his phone back, putting it in his pocket. Sure, I feel a bit drained, but I don't need sleep. He yawns. Kaminari winces at him. No offense, dude, but you look half dead. Izuku shakes his head. I'll be fine. Ace floats beside him. Her disappointed look makes her disbelief clear. Tokage leans in, pulling out her phone to show an AO3 page. If you don't go to bed, I'm showing All Might the fanfiction you wrote when you hadn't slept for 96 hours. All 20,000 words of it. She grins threateningly. He stands up immediately. Fine, fine. No need to go overkill on me. He starts to walk out of the room, too tired to teleport out of there. The last thing he hears before leaving is Kaminari's voice, saying, So, can I read it? A pure white egg sits in the volcanic area of the hatchery. An unbearable heat emanates from it, evaporating every drop of moisture on the nearby rocks. The heat swirls around it, flaring visibly as it slowly but surely picks up speed. This is ignored by Tenya as he walks past the hatchery. He heads up to the 2nd floor. His own egg is still hidden in his room, after all. As soon as he gets to Midoriya's door, he pulls out a lockpick, doing the practiced motions his brother taught him. Snip. He pulls out another lockpick. Tenya gets the door open, sneaking in. To make sure no Pokemon catches him, he tosses in a vial of Aunt Nemuri's sleeping gas. She's exposed him to it often enough that he's developed a resistance to it. Tenya walls past the unconscious Pokemon, starting to search the room. He opens a drawer, finding a bunch of basic Pokeballs. He picks one up. All of this makes him feel rotten. Stealing from his classmates several times, breaking into his room, and technically drugging his Pokemon. But then he remembers the coma state Tensei is in, gripping the ball tightly. Stain must pay. The consequences for me are irrelevant for now. Wake up. Come on, come on. Izuku slowly wakes up, opening his eyes to see Mei standing beside his bed. He sits up. Mei? What do you need? Instead of her usual crazed excitedness and interest, her aura is filled with an unfamiliar amount of worry. Crafty has the same aura too. That's worry. She sighs out of relief. Good, you're up. I know this is about an hour before you get up, but this is important. What is it? He turns to her as Ace pops out of her Pokeball, flying beside him. Mei holds up a piece of paper, showing the diagram for the device that instantly hatched Crafty. I'm sure you remember this, baby. Well, I built a replica of it so I could try to modify it, trying to see if I could get a functional one. I came to check on it this morning, and it was broken. She leans forward. He tilts his head. No offense, but don't most of your inventions often kinda break randomly when they're in the testing phase? Ace sits in his hair, peeking out of it. I mean, you aren't wrong. Mistakes are the mother of invention after all. Her grin quickly falters. But that usually happens immediately, or it's just a small break. This was the exact same type of break as when I used the original. So you get what probably happened? Only staff have access to the keys, so it would have to be someone bold enough to break in. Plus, they would have to have an egg to actually attempt to hatch. He stands up. Son of a beach. Someone used it, right? And there's only one person who could have done it. Ida. Ecto floats over since she usually doesn't sleep. She rubs against his side as metal claws quickly form on his fingers. She steps back looking at him. I'm gonna guess something happened with him. Usually you aren't the angry type. Crafty reaches over, petting Ecto. Izuku takes a deep breath, exhaling a tiny bit of dragon breath as his metallic claws fade. I've just had a stressful day yesterday. But don't worry, I'll confront him as soon as I can. He gives her a small smile. May nods. Works for me. Don't murder anyone. I'm gonna see if my lock-picking baby works on the teacher's dorms too. She runs off, holding up a key-shaped machine. Crafty shakes her head fondly before following. His smile drops as soon as they leave. He grabs Ace, sitting her on the bed. I'm gonna go train. Keep Ecto company for me, alright? Before she can react, he teleports himself away. As soon as he walks into the school, Izuku WHPs around with a dragon claw, slicing apart a WHP that was trying to wrap around him. When he realizes that it's midnight, he immediately steps back. Sorry, Sensei. I've just had a bad day, and I don't do well being startled. Midnight holds up her ruined WHP. Sheesh, kid, didn't expect that. And please, just call me Midnight? She grins at him. Well, what did you need from me, Midnight? And why did you need to use your WHP? He lets the claws fade so he can pet Nimbus, who's perched up in his hair. She tosses the WHP on the trash, pulling out another one. Well, you've been avoiding all your appointments with Hound Dog, so I was planning to just drag you to one. But since you won't let my WHP get you, we'll go with Ned's plan. She presses a button on her phone. Izuku blinks. What does that mean? The floor opens up beneath him. He yells out as he falls down into some type of tunnel. Hound Dog walks towards him from the other end of the tunnel. Not my preferred place for a session. Would you rather do it here or in my office? Nimbus flies down, pecking his pokeball to go back in. You realize I could just teleport away, right? He nods. Yes, I do. But these are mandatory, so avoiding them won't be worth it. Just accept the help kit. Hound Dog crouches down in front of him. Izuku sighs, stepping forward. Fine, I guess it couldn't hurt. Show me the way back to your office. All they have to sit on down here is an old couch and some type of rusty minecart. Hound Dog sneezes before standing up, gesturing for him to follow. Good. I'll be honest, this place really aggregates my allergies. Too much dust. Plus, my office has room for your Pokemon too. He provides idle chatter as they walk through the tunnel. Tomura sits at his computer. Okay, let's see. Monty looks up at him, tilting his head before pointing at the icon for Pokemon Multiverse. He shakes his head. No, I'm not playing that. Wishful Reptile still has to get back to me about finding the Azure Flute. Actually, I was about to try out my hacking skills. He pets Monty. After all, I spent all week trying to learn some of the basics. I think I have a good program set up to find some identities. Monty grabs onto his chair, climbing up into his lap. Tomura chuckles. I get it, you want attention. Let me just get this on first. He turns it on, leaning back. An error? Are you kidding me? He reaches forward, aiming to dust that stupid monitor. No, deep breaths. His hands shake with the longing to destroy. Even if it's faded, his anger still fuels it. A head nuzzles against his stomach, Monty attempting to hug him. Thank you, thanks, buddy. He fixes the error, which was just a stupid semicolon missing, before leaning into the touch. This feels nice. Tomura carefully hugs him back, making sure not to put all fingers on him. A few tears drip down his face. I think this is the first hug I've had since. Geez, it's been so long I can't even remember her name. Isn't that just sad? He chuckles dryly. I just know she was my sister. She was so sweet. Too sweet for an a-hole like me. He hugs Monty tighter. He stays like that, just hugging Monty as he silently cries. It feels oddly peaceful for once. The rough scales rub against his keeping him grounded even as his thoughts try to drag him into his oh-so-familiar rage. Unlike before, destruction seems like a childish option, unlike the path to relief Sensei described it as. Instead of questioning it, he decides to take the moment of peace. The questions are a problem for later. After a bit, the computer beeps. He sniffs, wiping away the tears. "Thanks, bud." Monty gives him a goofy smile in response. Tomura turns back to the computer. "Alright, let's see. Okay, Wishful Reptile is just a nobody named Iguchi. That was expected. Bolt is Kaminari? Demon, I didn't expect a UA student. Pokemidis? Midoriya?" He chuckles. "Well, that's just funny. We beat each other's buttes, and we didn't know that we've been playing together for nearly a decade now." He sighs, not feeling nearly as angry from it as he would have expected. Monty stares up at him, putting his hands on his hips. "Okay, fine, it was mostly him beating my butt. Not only do I still have the Lichtenberg scars, but I also have this." He points at the scarred-over acid burns on the back of his hands. At least he blocked it, so it was only his hands, not his face. At least it healed well enough. Technically, he could have had it healed more to remove the scar, but that would require even looking at the doctor. He glances at the last result. "Sylvie? Oh yeah, that's the newbie I started helping last year." "Midoriya Inko?" Tomura stares at the screen for a moment. "I've been talking to the mom of my online friend?" "No, wait, I've been talking to the mom of the teenager I almost killed." He stares at the screen in contemplation. Duh. I don't know what to do with this information. Monty makes a noise that's almost certainly laughter. Izuku sits down in the beanbag chair. This is surprisingly comfy for a therapist's office. He taps all his pokeballs, letting them hang out too. Hound Dog nods. "Yeah, my first therapist had such a rigid and claustrophobic office. I figured I'd go for a more comfortable theme." He pets Chip as she walks by him. Ecto floats into a dark corner, her colorful smog shifting to blend in with the shadows as she relaxes. Mighty grabs a dog treat out of a box. "Unhealthy but tasty. We deserve some cheat snacks." He opens a couple of them up, eating one and tossing the rest to the others. All of the trash gets tossed into Rex's awaiting mouth. After a moment of silence, Hound Dog leans back. "Alright, how do you want to do this? Do you want to start off talking, or do you want to hear about me first?" He looks at him. "I think I want to hear about you first. No offense, but I don't trust you yet, sorry." He scratches under his lip. "That's fine, I know the feeling." He idly scratches at the desk. "Well, first off, I became a therapist because I know how it feels for kids like me. While I've grown to be able to help a variety of students, I excel more with ones like me." Ace breaks a treat in half, floating the other half over to Nebi, who happily eats it. Hound Dog pets Nimbus as she perches in his hair. That means the angry and the feral, along with mutants in general. "I know how it feels to be looked down upon for acting more animalistic, for just showing a few primal traits." He sighs. "But other than that, I just like to help the youth. I want the next generation to have less of the untreated trauma us older heroes have." He smiles at him as Nimbus cleans through his hair. "As for some more basic stuff, I like being around animals, I enjoy walking through the woods, and I even learned some wood carving." Izuku pulls down his mask, biting on his sleeve out of habit. "Ah, that sounds nice." He can see Chip messing with a wood carving of Nedzu. Hound Dog looks at him curiously. "Do you have a habit of chewing on things?" He nods. "Yeah, I think my old phone stylus is practically covered in bite marks. That thing is barely usable now, so torn up from years of chewing." I know the feeling. Luckily, I have something to help with this." He opens a drawer, sitting a bunch of colorful items. Some are shaped like fruits, others look like stylized bones and hearts. These are some human chew toys. I use these brands myself. Izuku stares at them. "These exist? I thought they only made chew toys for pets, and people just had to SCK it up." He glances over all of them. Hound Dog sighs as he pulls a white bone out of his pocket. "Yeah, they're only really marketed to mutants. My favorite flavor for them is beef." He bites down onto the bone. He picks up a yellow star-shaped chew toy. He bites down onto it, tasting an artificial lemon flavor, like a yellow gummy bear. Tasty? Can I keep this? Nimbus flies out of Hound Dog's hair, instead going to dust off a bookshelf before getting jump-scared by Ecto. Oh yeah, that's fine. Take more for your friends if you want. These make it easier to chew on them too. He points at some strings. Izuku attaches the strings to the sides of the bone, making it into a necklace. He grabs a dark red heart, an orange lizard tail, and a blue skull, making them all into necklaces. The starting bell rings. Hound Dog sighs. Well, that's it for today's session. Does another one right before internships sound good? He nods, standing up. Yeah, that sounds like it'd be helpful. He taps a button on his belt, recalling all of his Pokemon at once. Thanks for the session, Hound Dog. Izuku teleports to the classroom. Aizawa stands in front of the class. So far, we've mostly had you train your bodies. However, you also need to be able to use logic in a fight. Stalker turns the screen on for him. The screen shows a fight between Best Jeanist and the villain Artemis. For example, ignoring any previous knowledge, how could you tell the quirks of the people here? Kaminari raises his hand. Well, for Best Jeanist, most people wouldn't wear such an excessive amount of denim as a hero, so his quirk probably involves it. He sits a battery on his desk, letting Zip Zap bite onto it. Aizawa nods. Good job. Now for the villain. After a moment of silence, Momo raises her hand. Bows are an underused weapon nowadays, so it's likely connected to her quirk. Her odd pupil shape also shows that it may assist with aiming. Aizawa nods again as Stalker hops onto the podium. Both good thoughts. Just remember not to lean too far into assumptions like this, as they can sometimes be misleading. Be prepared for anything. He grabs Stalker, putting him back on the ground. Anyone want to explain what Artemis' quirk actually is? Aizawa looks around. Izuku raises his hand. Her quirk actually allows her to ignite anything she touches in green fire. The bow was used for flaming arrows, and the eyes simply came from her father's family. When everyone stares at him, he hunches in on himself. I had a Best Jeanist phase, and she was a recurring villain for him. All of that is correct. Aizawa nods. Now, you all are going to each watch a hero fight assigned to you, trying to analyze as much as you can about them. He sits 2 stacks of paper on the podium. Zero raises his hand. Couldn't we just look them up on the hero and villain database? He idly taps his pencil on his desk. Aizawa sighs. I was getting to that. He holds up 2 fingers. This assignment has 2 parts. First, you'll use just your analysis skills, no external sources. Then you'll use your researching skills to search up further info about them. He hands the papers to Stalker, letting him pass them out. Izuku still feels anxiety brimming on his skin from all the eyes on him earlier. He lifts his necklace to his mouth, pulling down his mask so he can chew on it. The lemony flavor quickly flows into his mouth. Midoriya, that is not behavior fitting of a UA student. Don't chew on things like an animal. He thought all the stress from yesterday had worn off. But Ida's words, they brought it all back. He spits out the star, baring his teeth. I was given this by a staff member. Mind your business. It's a struggle to hold himself back. Embers dance on his teeth, desperate to form into flaming fangs. The beginnings of draconic claws form, barely being pulled back into his skin. He barely restrains his anger, turning back to his desk as papers get sat on it. Aizawa looks at Ida. I'm the teacher, let me handle Deepening if necessary. He looks down at Izuku, whispering. Go into your Pokeball to complete this assignment. I can tell you need the relaxation. As soon as he walks away, Izuku pulls out his cherished ball. He grabs the papers before tapping the ball on his head. The temple is a welcome reprieve. A gentle breeze flows through the air, the sound of birds chirping helping him relax. Or, if it's the same as what happened yesterday, helping him bury the stress for now. He walks into the temple, going to his room and sitting on his futon. Okay, now let's find the video assigned to me. For some reason, he can create a holographic screen in here to view it on. Makes about as much sense as the Pokeball blueprints did, but as soon as the video starts, he pauses it. The villain stands on a pile of charred rubble. They wear dragon-style armor, the helmet even looking like a metal dragon skull. Could be quirk-related or a stylistic decision. The helmet had a couple visible joints on the jaw, and the parts of armor on the arms seemed less connected to the rest. They also had a utility belt on. The hero looks much different. Her black hair is tied up into a bun, her face being shown proudly. She wears a black sleeveless bodysuit, though she does have yellow gloves that go up to her elbow. Similarly, her boots are knee-length, but they're white. She has a red cape on her hips, and a larger white cape on her shoulders. Loose outfit may mean her Quirk benefits from maneuverability. He tries to ignore how good she looks. She's buff, tall, intimidating, and she also looks kind. But for the sake of analysis, he has to push past his brain. Once the video unpauses, the fight begins. The villain tosses smoke bombs, obscuring the battlefield. The hero stomps on the ground, blowing away the smoke as her body shines with a pink glow. Quirk clearly affects strength levels. He zooms in on the shine. Looks almost like excess energy being turned into a form of light. The fight continues, the villain whipping out a pistol to try and shoot her. The hero flicks forward, a blast of wind knocking the gun out of their hand. Grenades shoot out of a compartment on the armpiece, but she just jumps up, floating above the explosions. Izuku pauses the video. That's weird. It allows her to float, but also allows her that amount of strength. I need to find the connection, he writes it down before unpausing. Another smoke bomb temporarily fills the area, getting cleared out as the hero slams into the ground. The villain peeks their head out of some rubble, their helmet opening as they exhale a twirling stream of flames. That fire looked weird. He zooms in, rewinding and slowing down the video. Looking closer, the fire isn't coming from their mouth at all. Instead, two streams come out from inside her armor, one on the left and one on the right, just combining in front of their mouth. Izuku leans back. They seem really focused on hiding their quirk. Most likely related to fire, though this could be a support item. Once he unpauses the video, the hero punches upwards, sending the flames into the sky. She weaves around the next stream of fire, floating above it before spinning down, landing a kick on the villain's teeth. They're sent flying back, the force cracking the armor apart. A man steps out of the suit, matching dragon tattoos on his forearms. He has a black beard, but his head is bald. The only other notable feature is the burn scar on his neck. As the hero sprints at him, he summons twirling dragons made of fire, shooting out of his tattoos. So that's his quirk. Decently weak, since those dragons are about the height of a cat. When it becomes clear that the hero isn't fazed, the villain panics, pulling out a syringe. Trigger. He injects it into his neck, his tattoos starting to glow with heat. Massive dragons twirl out of them, glowing with blue fire. The hero attempts to punch them, but it only fuels the flame. Instead, she leaps up into the air, floating temporarily to let her scale higher and higher. The dragons follow her up, surrounding her until she's practically drenched in sweat. They all try to dive at her. That's when she falls. She soars towards the ground, the glow shining around her. Right before she hits the ground, she turns, kicking off the rubble and rolling through the fall, even as her speed tears through the concrete. The villain is not only knocked over from the sheer wind force from the kick, but his own dragons also end up slamming into him, knocking him unconscious. Izuku turns to his notes. Alright, I think I've got it well enough. He takes his time fully fleshing out his notes on them. He starts to get distracted, but chewing on the star is enough to let him focus. Villain, older male with black beard, bald. Has orange dragon tattoos on his forearms his quirk summons from. Has a burn scar on his neck. Relies on support items and trickery to hide his quirk. Most commonly used a pistol, smoke bombs, and grenades, but occasionally uses fire attacks too. Has a draconic suit of armor where the mouth can open, and the sleeves seem to be removable. Quirk allows him to summon small dragons made of fire from his tattoos. May have trigger, which can increase the danger. For the hero, all they had to analyze was the costume purpose and their quirk. The identifiable information needed to catch a villain isn't as important for heroes. Hero, cape purpose is unknown, but may be to calm civilians or use as emergency restraints. Bodysuit allows for easier movement. Quirk has two effects, seeming like separate quirks. One part allows them to float in. midair, also being used to climb into the air. The other gives inhuman strength along with increased speed and possibly durability, as the fall witnessed would have been fatal to most. The only connecting factor is that when the quirk is used, a pink glow emanates from the user. Now to the research portion. The villain seems to be a disgraced Yakuza leader who resorted to robbery, often destroying the homes he robbed. He went by the name of Flamelord. The only part he got wrong was saying he used a pistol. Apparently that was some type of modified nailgun instead. The hero was more interesting, not just because of her appearance. Sure, she was pretty low-ranked, but that was just because she didn't have many public fights. She had Joy Fist as her hero name, since she talked about the importance of a smile, and she also kicked butt. Her quirk was just called Float, but that didn't seem right. Now that he thinks about it, wait a minute. He makes a sphere appear around him, using it to roll over to the podium. Instead of leaving the ball, he just forces his papers out of it onto the floor in front of Aizawa. Aizawa glances at the little note added with it all. Fine, you can go ask him your question. Just be back before class ends. Izuku rolls out of class before he finally gets out of the ball, grabbing it and teleporting to an empty meeting room. He lets out both Mighty and Nebi. Hey Mighty, could you bring Toshinori in here? You can have Nebi help you teleport him. Nebi floats over to him. Mighty stretches. We can do that, but I'll probably go train with Kavacha afterwards. Sounds good. He picks up Nebi. He nods, leaning back. They teleport away, leaving Izuku there with the lemony taste in his mouth as he waits, chewing on his necklace. Toshinori appears a moment later, holding Nebi in his arms. Ah, this explains why Mighty came up to me. What did you need to talk about, my boy? He sits down, petting Nebi. Well, we're doing an assignment where we analyze old fights. I'll just ask, is the name Joy Fist familiar to you? Izuku pulls the chew toy out of his mouth. BLD sprays across the table as Toshinori coughs out of surprise. Nebi tries his best to pat his back, even with his gaseous limb. I haven't heard that name in years. She was my mentor and my predecessor. Her use of one for all was more skillful than mine. Izuku nods. Okay, that explains her weird quirk. And also explains why she had to get that buff. He must be blushing more than he thinks, because Toshinori sighs. If it helps, even though she was like a mother to me, she was also my first crush. He chuckles. A snort escapes out of him. Really? He giggles. Toshinori nods. Yeah, though my type has changed since then. Clearly my mentor has good taste though. He reaches over, ruffling his hair. Izuku snickers, feeling his face warm up. Oh, shut up, Dad. There's a moment of silence. Toshinori realizes what he heard. Izuku realizes what he said. In an instant, Izuku teleports out of there, Nebi quickly following him. Nope, not dealing with that. He starts to walk back to class, ignoring the heat in his cheeks. I still need to hand over these necklaces. Ace floats inside of her ball. It's best described as a vast void, filled with crimson-colored stars shimmering with the light of creation and glittering crystals reflecting that light through the open void. A floating island sits in the center, covered in rainbow-colored grass. She holds out her paw, shards of red crystals forming into the shape of a screen. A memory of the sports festival is projected onto it, of her trainer fighting Todoroki. The improvised move is repeated again and again, as she tries to understand it. Then it switches to the fight with Bakugo, showing the other improvised move. She can't learn them instinctively like normal moves. But she can practice. The crystal screen shatters, pulling in more shards until it forms the shape of a Snorlax. The perfect training dummy. Her tiny body isn't the best for some moves, but that's where shape-shifting helps. She swings out her tail, letting metal claws form out of it as it shifts into the shape of a paw. Emotional energy ebbs and flows through the void, so she pulls some in, letting it fill the metal as aura. Aura cleave. She slashes with her tail, sending 3 waves of aura that tear through the crystals like paper. It makes her tail feel a bit sore from the kickback, but the strength is worth it. What's left of Snorlax reforms into crystalline targets. They aren't stationary, floating throughout the void, orbiting the island. Ace shapes her tail back to normal, covering it in purple scales. She tries to focus flame charge on her tail, watching orange flames cover every scale until it's all ignited. Ignition scales. She fires them out, watching them all home in on the different targets, exploding into a small burst of flames once they hit them. Not nearly as strong without the nitroglycerin to aim for, but still helpful. She winces, looking down to see her singed fur. That's enough for today. She points her paw downward, watching shards of crystals shatter even smaller until they form a snow-like powder, letting her lay down on the pile of it, chilling it slightly to cool off her tail. Izuku walks into his room, closing the door before startling at a cough. "You're all here already?" Toga sits on the floor, Wraith sitting in her lap. "Yeah, we figured we'd wait for you. Makes it easier for all of us." She pets Wraith. Shinso leans against the wall by his window. "Originally I was going to say screw it and sleep instead of this. Then I saw how you looked more like me than Mina emotion and sleep-wise, so I realized it was serious." He scratches the back of his neck. "You all didn't have to come. You probably had plans." Izuku sighs. Tokoyami shakes his head from where he sits on top of his dresser. "Nonsense. Admittedly, this room is a tad bit claustrophobic with all of us here, but your mental health is more important." Dark Shadow pops out, nodding along with him. Minoma sits beside Shinso, leaning onto him. "Exactly. After all, we can't have our resident Pokemon nerd being too down in the dumps." Loki transforms into Izuku's Meowth plush. May pokes her head out from under the bed. "I'm here too." Chip keeps trying to push both her and Crafty out of her den. Izuku shakes his head. "It's not that bad. Okay, it isn't good, but still." He sits on his bed. Also sitting on his bed are Kaminari, Mina, and Tokage. Tokage puts her arm around Kaminari's shoulder, pulling him closer. "I brought Sparks with me. I can't believe Mina didn't tell me about this cutie." Kaminari blushes. "Hey, I'm not cute." Zip Zap crawls out of his hair, going down onto his shoulder and lightly biting down. When Izuku focuses, he can see the electricity flowing into her. Mina lightly flicks Tokage. "I know he's cute, but we need to let Izuku talk. Weren't you the one who was most worried about him?" She smiles at her. Tokage sighs, letting Kaminari go. "Sorry. Just couldn't help trying to lighten the mood first." She turns to Izuku. "Well, you have the floor. And you aren't leaving until you get a good chance to vent. You clearly need it." He takes a deep breath, mentally preparing himself for this. "All right. But none of you are allowed to talk until I'm done. I don't think I can start again if I stop. Got it?" They all nod. "Good." He sits down on the floor. It all started on Monday when school started back up. He retells everything that had happened. Ida bumping into him. And later stealing the egg, what he was told by Aizawa, and what he learned of Ida using May's tech. He even mentions the occasional nightmares he has, remembering the pain from the USJ, the sensation of electricity in his veins, and the smell of his own flesh cooking from the lighting. By the time he finishes, he can't hold in the tears anymore. He sniffles, leaning forward as tears start to pour down his face. A body slams into him, arms wrapping around him. Static tingles against his skin, definitely Kaminari. "Geez, Midoriya, I didn't know you went through so much shit. It's okay to cry, all that, Fitsafid man." Izuku hugs him back. "Sorry for overwhelming you all with that, you probably don't know how to respond." He sniffles, wiping the tears off his face even as more replace them. "We wanted to know. Even if we aren't therapists, we can try to help." Mina leans forward. "We all get that helpless feeling. It just SCKS that most of us are better with physical comfort than verbal, but with your quirk." She points at how much he's wearing. He glances at everyone. "That if it. I don't care about that right now, I need some comfort. Please." In an instant, his friends swarm on him, limbs wrapping around him until he's surrounded by them all. Instead of feeling claustrophobic, this makes him feel safe. Izuku lets himself sob, all his tears getting wiped away by Tokage's detached hand. They stay like that for a while. Normally he's used to fearing touch, but this? The gentle hugs and cuddles? He craves it. The closest he's had was his mom's hugs. Eventually, they have to break apart, though Kaminari, Tokage, and Mina stay by him. May leans against the bed. Well, that's gonna be a lot of eggs. I'll try to upgrade the egg hatching things so they'll hopefully hatch after internships. Crafty shakes her head. Toga pets Wraith. That's not important for now. I'm just glad we got to all hug. Izuku feels Tokage's hand wipe away the last of his tears before reattaching to her. Thanks you guys, I'm glad I got to get all that off my sea. Keeping it to myself was just so stressful. He sighs. Tokoyami nods. Understandable. One lone soul cannot bear the suffering you have experienced without a support group, after all. And we're glad to support you. Dark Shadow lays beside Izuku, even after the hug pile ended. Shinso points at his star chew. By the way, what's that? Never seen a necklace like that before. He lays down on the floor. Izuku holds it up. It's a human chew toy Hound Dog gave me during therapy. Oh right. He turns to Kaminari, Mina, and Tokage. I have these for you, they fit you 3-2 perfectly. He hands the other chew toys to them. Mina takes the dark red heart. She bites into it. Oh, it's cherry. I'm surprised you remembered my favorite, green bean. She puts it on, letting the heart hang from her neck. Tokage takes the orange lizard tail, sniffing it. Doesn't have an immediate smell, must just be taste. Good, my nose is annoyingly sensitive. She puts it on, biting into it. Orange flavored. Hell yeah, greeny. Plus it can survive my teeth. Finally, Kaminari takes the blue skull. Are you sure I can have this? When he gets a nod, he carefully bites into it. Whoa. I didn't expect it to be blue raspberry. That's one of my favorites. He smiles widely. Thanks for this. He puts it on, immediately lifting it back to his mouth. Izuku smiles at them. You're welcome, guys. Just seeing them happy cheers him up a bit. Monoma lays on his back. I also went to Hound Dog and I got this from him. He holds out some fidget magnets. He looks at all the surprised expressions. What? Think I'm too proud to go to therapy? Honestly? Yeah. Toga tosses her knife in the air. I mean, I only went to it because it was required to get my BLD. She catches it by the handle. Dark Shadow reaches out, grabbing something off a shelf. Enough therapy talk. Let's have some fun with chaos. She holds out a deck of Uno cards. Tokoyami places a hand on his forehead. Of course you'd pick Uno. Luck rules the cards, strategy only being a fleeting mirage at best. True chaos? He shakes his head before sighing. Izuku leans towards the cards. Alright, this should be fun. The next morning, Izuku teleports into the hatchery, 5 eggs held in his arms that he has to distribute in there. The first egg is a dark violet color. A crack runs through it, splitting into 4 small holes at the center of the egg. The fracture is filled by a reddish magenta fluid, keeping it sealed. It's Mina's egg. He sits it in the volcanic area, a healthy distance away from Endeavor's egg. As for the second egg, it's a nearly black shade of green on top and bottom. There's an orange circle on each side, connecting the top and bottom near the back of the egg. The center of the egg is just a shade of green. All of it is made with a layer of scales. Definitely Tokage's. He puts it in the field area. Tokoyami and Dark Shadow both got separate eggs. That supports his theory of them being conjoined twins more than a person and his quirk, but that's a discussion for later. Tokoyami's egg has a layer of feathers covering it. The top of it is a bunch of blue feathers, sticking closely to it. The center has a bunch of unruly black feathers, constantly puffed out. Finally, the bottom has yellow feathers, more similar to the top. He puts it in a nest. Dark Shadow's egg, instead, has rough bark covering it. The outer layer of the egg is made of dead tree bark. The holes on the bark lead to the pure black eggshell beneath it, seeming to SCK in all light that goes in them. He sits it on a tree stump. All that was left was Shinso's egg. It was magenta-colored, a horizontal black line going around the egg. The only other thing he could note about it was the sickly sweet smell seeping out of it. He sits it down by a small shrine. Then he takes a moment, staring at the one egg made for a man he hates. Endeavor's egg. He places a hand on the egg. Even with my mixed feelings. I'll care for you. Izuku sighs. You're not going to turn out as bad as he did. Not if I can help it. Warmth continues to flow out of the egg. He pats the egg gently before walking away, out of the room. Izuku heads into the kitchen. Kaken and Scorch are fixing breakfast. Need some help? Kaken turns to him. Fing finally. We're getting the rice and miso soup, but I refuse to touch the natto in the freezer. I still don't get how some people like that stuff. He keeps stirring the pot. Normally you don't make this type of extravagant meal for breakfast. What's happening? He takes the natto out, putting it in the fridge to thaw out. Scorch leans over the rice cooker, grabbing bowls from the cabinets. Kaken groans. Did Ponytail not tell you? He turns towards the mostly empty table. Hey 3D printer, you forgot to tell your vice pres the important sheet. Momo closes her book, standing up. I did try to tell him, but the door was locked and he didn't respond. I should have kept trying. I apologize, Midoriya. She bows lightly. Izuku walks over. It's okay really. Now what is it you wanted to tell me? Ecto floats down the stairs. Well, Kendo decided we should have breakfast together, both classes. I agreed, so they'll be coming over. I was hoping you could help set up some seating. She gestures at the closet. He nods. Of course, I don't mind. Ecto tries to sneak towards the rice cooker, but he reaches out to grab onto her smog. She pouts at him, but she follows him to the closet, opening it to see a bunch of tables and chairs. The two of them work together to get everything out. Ecto is mostly just emotional support, but support is support. Izuku leans against the wall of the dining room. With everyone here, it's a bit crowded, but there's still space for everyone. While he could join in, he likes observing everyone. Ojiro and Kendo sit at a table together, discussing different types of martial arts. At the same table, Momo and Shishida talk about manners. From what he can hear of it, it sounds like their families had very different perceptions of manners. Kirishima and Tetsu are, of course, trying to arm wrestle each other. People were cheering them on for the first 5 minutes. By the time it hit 10 minutes of continuous arm wrestling, most people gave up and went to go do something else. That clearly didn't stop them. At least Nebi was still cheering them on. Fukudashi, Tsu, Aoyama, and Bondo sit together. They seem to be talking about a new hero fighting game. He'll have to check that out later. Shinso lays on the couch, taking a nap as Shuji wraps him up with a nearby blanket. Minoma just sits beside Shinso, low-key cuddling up between the two of them. Komori leans against Jairu, whispering something into her ear. Whatever she said, it made Jairu's face bright red as she w's her head around, deciding to just stare at the wall instead of at Momo like before. He can't see them physically, but he can see the auras of Tokoyami and Kuroro hiding in the cabinets. As they talk about who knows what, Dark Shadow and Ecto play around in the darkness. As for Kaken and Kamakiri, they get along about as well as Zangoose and Sevibur. Kamakiri tried to start a competition to prove who's better, but Scorch just tossed him at Rin. Izuku smiles to himself. It's nice to see everyone having fun. Ace floats into his hands, getting some pets. He glances back at everyone else. Most of the food had already been finished by now, the classes just fooling around while they still can. Though of course, there's Ida. He can feel his aura outside. Ida is out behind the dorms, training whatever Pokemon he stole. The urge to run out there and confront him now is strong, but he knows he shouldn't. Mainly because if he does it now, he'll be so drained for the rest of the day that his grades will suffer. For now, he just takes the time he can to relax and enjoy the atmosphere as Ace rubs against his cistee, purring softly. Stain stalks through the streets. Hunting in the day would be a suicide mission, so this is more of a scouting attempt than anything. While his preferred outfit is recognizable, he can easily blend in as an ill civilian with a face mask. Using the name he's forsaken just to blend in feels disgusting, but it's necessary. He slips into the mall. Some stores have televisions for free news access, and he already spots some heroes attempting to shill their merchandise to moldable children. Perfect for finding fake heroes. In the center of the mall is Uwabami, surrounded by stalls selling her fashion pieces. My, what a lovely crowd we have today. If you all buy enough, I may even try to get some UA students to come and model for me. I'm sure you all would love to see those young heroes in the making in my delectable outfits. The crowd, especially some of the older men, cheer. Unfortunately, he can't slaughter every sellout he sees, even with those vile words. So he has to walk past Yuabami, gripping the dagger in his pocket as he glares at her. I didn't think anyone disliked her as much as me. An elderly lady chuckles from a bench nearby, holding her purse in her lap. Come sweetie, have a seat. It's not good to carry that anger for too long after all. Despite how little he wants a detour from his mission, it would be rude not to. He sighs, sitting down next to her. The way she talks about those kids is disgusting. He scowls under the mask. The woman nods. Oh, I agree. My granddaughter, Hito, interned for her a couple of years ago. I had to come out of retirement just to sue that harlot for the things she put my sweet grandbaby in. She smacks her cane on the ground. Hopefully your granddaughter ends up being a better hero than her. This world needs more true heroes, after all. She smiles at him. Oh, I believe she will be. After all, the first-year sports festival winner called her to advise his classmates against going with that harlot for their internships. With friends like that, she'll be a great hero. He almost forgot about the sports festival. He'll need to check out the results of that soon, especially to see how much promise will be in the next generation. A man runs by, snatching the purse from the old woman's lap before sprinting away. Help, there's a purse snatcher. Help. She gets up, pointing at the man. Yuambi, despite being within hearing range, doesn't even turn her head. Stain growls as he stands up. I'll handle it. He sprints forward, adrenaline rushing through his BLD as he catches up with the petty thief, sweeping his legs and pinning him down. Not even a real challenge, pathetic. He takes the purse, sliding it across the mall floor over to the lady. One hero, who was clearly about to try to steal the glory, suddenly turns to the purse, picking it up and sneakily trying to take some cash. He kicks the purse out of his hands, quickly handing it to the woman. Really? Stealing from the elderly? Disgusting. The hero chases him with portals as he sprints away into a system of alleyways that he knows far too well. It's a pity too. He liked this disguise. In an instant, he pinned the hero in a dead end, cutting his skin and liking the blade. Well, even if I can't kill every false hero, you'll do for my second kill in Hosu. In your dying moments, know my name. The hero killer, Stain. The hero's face pales in an instant. But let's make this nice and slow, like you deserve. Izuku walks out of the showers, back in his normal clothes. He spent most of that time just learning moves, some from all of the Pokemon. He almost has full type coverage by now. But now, he has to confront Ida. If he waits any longer, he might honestly snap at someone. He sneaks behind the dorms, seeing him holding a plain Pokeball in his hand. What do you think you're doing, Ida? Ida's aura flares with panic for a moment before his overwhelming rage covers it. None of your concern, Midoriya. Go back inside and leave me to have my alone time. Oh, so suddenly Pokemon training is alone time? He sees him flinch. I'm not stupid. I can sense my eggs and I can sense Pokemon. So, tell me, Izuku yanks him down by his collar to glare into his eyes. What the F do you think you're doing? Acid drips from his mouth as he speaks. Ida shoves him away. What I do with my Pokemon is none of your concern. I simply don't choose to flaunt mine around like the rest of you do. He puts the Pokeball in his pocket, not breaking eye contact. He nearly growls, dragon claws forming on his fingers. Not my concern? Your Pokemon? You're an idiot. I am doing the right thing. It's not my fault that you want to weasel your way into everyone's business, like you did with Todoroki. Ida steps back, glaring at him. Izuku takes a step forward, baring his teeth. Ida, all the Pokemon I spawn are like children to me. It doesn't matter if I give them to others, I still care for them. All Pokemon are my concern. You're already a thief. If I find out you're also an abuser. He dashes at him with quick attack, knocking him over, pinning him to the front. I'll make what I did to Shigaraki seem like a mercy. Acid drips out of his open maw, melting through Ida's shirt. Ida still has the gall to glare up at him. Your attachment issues aren't my problem. I'm going to make Stain pay. I don't have the time to coddle my Pokemon just to please you. Now why don't you leave and chew on your toy, you animal? First he glances at his BLD-covered fist, shadows fading off of it. Then he looks at Ida, seeing his visibly broken nose. Hiji hit him with a shadow punch. The urge to follow his instinct and do more, to brutalize this a-hole, is strong to push down, but he manages, standing up and taking a few steps away. Ida, I'll let you attempt your foolish plan. It's too close to the internships for the adults to stop you, and if I tried myself, I wouldn't be able to stop until your condition matched your brother's. Izuku walks to the dorm's wall, grabbing the corner of it and glancing back at Ida. But just know that your actions have consequences. And me? I can't wait to see karma hit you with a vengeance. He chuckles. Your threats mean nothing to me. Consequences? All that matters is justice. I'll make sure Stain gets what he deserves. Ida stands up, holding his nose with one hand. He scoffs. Your brother would be so disappointed in you. With that, he walks off, an unconscious icy wind freezing the grass as he walks on it. Izuku follows his class into the train station. Luckily, Pokeballs can contain some items, so he just put everything he needed into his cherish ball. Aizawa looks at all of them. Hopefully you all got everything you needed, because we aren't going back. Stalker stands beside him, staring into the souls of anyone who tried to approach so they would back off. Zero nods. Yeah, we got what we need. Probably more. His suitcase practically bulges around the zipper, the contents attempting to burst out. You shouldn't overpack, bro. Kirishima's suitcase stays strapped onto his back. I used to do it, and then it went all over the station floor. Far too embarrassing. Aizawa sighs, shaking his head. Remember, you're all representing UA. Be respectful to your mentors and don't do anything stupid. He hands Stalker a chocolate bar, who quickly tears off the wrapper to devour it. A bullet train pulls into the station, making Izuku perk up. Ah, that's mine. He waves at his friends before sprinting into the train. Just a moment later, Mighty pops out of his Pokeball, sitting beside him. It had gotten a bit boring in there. I figured some different scenery would benefit me. Izuku chuckles. Oh please, we both know that you just like looking out train windows. He leans back as all of his other Pokemon pop out. Ace settles on his lap and Chip hides under the seat, but all the rest try to explore the surprisingly empty train. Mighty stands up, walking towards one of the windows. Ecto flies past him. Alright, you got me. I just like some of the scenery. He leans against the window, gazing into the distance. Just don't get too invested and go out the door for a better view, only to fall out of the train again. Ugh. He dodges a small aura sphere, giggling. I'm never letting you live that down. As the train stops again, the door opens. Minoma walks in. I honestly can't understand why both classes had to go to separate stations. After all, some of us will ride the same train anyways. Loki pops out of their Pokemon, sliding over to play with Rek. Izuku smiles, waving at him. Hey Minoma. I'm glad I at least get to have one friend with me here. Ace perks up, waving her tail at Minoma in sync with Izuku. Minoma sits down where Mighty was before. I still wonder why Apex chose me. I admit, I am curious how copying his quirk would work. It's interesting. Loki transforms into a large bug net, which Rek uses to try and capture Ecto. He sits up to stop them, but since Ecto is giggling, it seems like she's having fun. Taking care of Pokemon sometimes feels like being a parent. Izuku sighs fondly. I know, right? Minoma chuckles. Wraith and Loki both act practically like siblings because Toga and I have been hanging out a lot to finish up our Cassette Beasts playthrough. We had to stop them from fighting over a chip we dropped, and then they stole the whole bag to try and solve the problem. He leans back, Nimbus perching in his hair. Izuku sighs. Yeah, that sounds about like some of the stuff I remember seeing with Chip and Mighty. Minoma points up at Nimbus. Why does he like doing this so much? It feels like he's just picking through my hair, but gently. He pats Nimbus on the head. He shrugs before taking a moment to think. I mean, he mostly does it to guys. Maybe because guys don't take care of their hair well, and he likes to clean it? Though I do take care of my hair well. He puts his hand on his chin. I mean, he probably just does it with you because you're practically like his dad. Minoma winces as Nimbus pecks a bit too strong. Izuku pauses for a moment. I mean, I guess you aren't wrong. A moment of silence passes. So, want to play some games? I brought my SW. Minoma nods immediately. Yes please, this ride is going to be like 45 minutes. He sits up as the SW gets pulled out, taking the Pro Controller handed to him. Once the train finally gets to their destination, they both walk out. Izuku picks up Nimbus, showing him an image of the agency. Find this for us, alright? He nods, flying off into the air. Minoma watches him fly off. I guess that is one use of flying types, huh? He holds out the premier ball, letting Loki go back into it. After a moment, Nimbus flies back, chirping something to Nebi. Ecto tries to distract him, but Chip pulls her back, handing her over to Rek. He just smothers Ecto with a slime hug. Why not just teleport there yourself from the photo? Minoma puts away the pokeball. Ace flies close to him, so he reaches under her chin, scratching it lightly. He considers it for a moment, but Mighty shakes his head beside him. That wouldn't be a good idea. The less familiar you are with a location, the more unstable the teleportation, which can lead to some unfortunate results. Izuku's nods in understanding. Right, good point. He looks at Minoma. Nebi is a natural with teleportation, and even he has accidentally hurt himself when teleporting to a new place. Information makes it more stable, and a picture alone isn't enough. All the Pokemon, except for Nebi, go back into their ball. Minoma steps closer. Fair. So I'm guessing Nebi will do it for us? He pets Nebi, getting a happy cheer in response. Yep. You know what to do, boy. He smiles. Nebi nods, his eyes glowing as the cosmic fog of his body starts to disperse. It gets thinner, but it covers the two of them completely before gleaming as they get teleported. Once they land on their feet, Nebi regains his shape, though his body gleams less as he goes back into his ball. Minoma almost falls over, but he regains his balance. Poor little guy, that was probably tiring. They both look up at the agency. While most of the buildings were modest offices, this rose far above them, with a model of a dragon skeleton wrapped around it, perching its skull on the roof. A garden surrounded the front of the building, a few animal statues surrounded by blooming bushes. Good you're here. Apex walks out of the door. He's already wearing his mask, his thick jacket covering most of his body. Come on in, we have lots to do. He turns around, stepping back in and gesturing for them to come inside. The two of them look at each other before nodding. They walk into the agency together, the door shutting behind them. Katsuki walks into the agency. It was only 1 floor tall, pretty shabby to most. Not his style, but from all the dust, it seems underused. The only person here is a woman at the front desk. She glances up at him. Bakugo Katsuki? He nods. That's me. Where's the hair at? He's already wearing his hero outfit. Sure, Eraser said not to, but Mirko doesn't seem like she'd give a sheet. She sighs before pointing to a door. She's down there. As he walks away, he can hear her mumble, not another one of her, she already gives me enough paperwork just by herself. The door leads down into a basement. At the bottom, there's a fighting ring. Mirko leans against a corner. Perfect timing, Blasty. You almost kept me waiting. Get on in here, I want a practice match. Bring out your kitty too. She grins. Katsuki presses the luxury ball, Scorch appearing beside him. Alright, I won't pass up a chance to let loose. He blasts into the air, barely dodging a kick. Better not expect me to hold back. She sweeps Scorch's legs, kicking her up into the air. Mirko ducks under an explosion, bouncing up to slam her feet into his stomach. He slams into the wall, nearly vomiting, but just letting his grin get wider. Wouldn't dream of it. Katsuki blasts himself above the next kick, sliding under her follow-up just to be safe. Darkest Lariat. Mirko tries to kick him to prevent an ultimate move. Before she can even teach him, she's swept up by Scorch. Burning shadows swirl around as she swings her arms around before slamming Mirko to the ground. She bounces up, kicking Scorch into the wall. Lemon, the bait and SW. You've got some spunk. But we're not ending this just yet. We're going until I think you're ready for tomorrow. Are you ready to quit yet? She grins. Katsuki chuckles, letting explosions pop in his palms. Oh, you wish. They stare at each other, waiting for the perfect time to strike. Her eyes narrow. and then they clash. Hitoshi Shinso stares up at the agency. Well, definitely fits. The building was shaped pretty normally, after all no need for wasted space, but the colors. The brick walls are all orange, harshly standing out from the bland houses nearby. All the windows have a sea green tint, like her hair. The roof was just plain green, because Arceus forbid they have it be green. He also can't ignore all the smiley face stickers plastered around randomly. I really hope I'm correct and this is contagious laughter, or otherwise this will be hell. He walks up the door, grabbing onto the handle and hearing it honk like a clown nose. He groans. Hey, I know that bone-dead groan from anywhere. The door gets yanked open before he's pulled into a hug. Baby eraser. Knew you'd accept my offer? Ms. Joke grins at him. I was correct, and suddenly I wish I wasn't. He's put down on solid ground after a moment. Looking around, the place is bustling full of heroes. All of them are chatting up a storm, leaving the agency full of life and activity. Ms. Joke pats his head. You live. Now welcome to the Laughingstock Agency. Something above them pops, raining confetti on them. A majority of the heroes seem to be dressed as some sort of clown or mime outfit. All of us here use humor to our advantage. Hitoshi brushes a bit of confetti off his shoulder. Now, I am happy I get to meet you in person, but you realize this isn't my type of place, right? I'm planning to be underground. He sighs. Her grin just widens as she glances down at him. Oh, when I said all of us, I meant all of us up here. Down there though, she points at an elevator. We like to use horror instead. Let me show you. She grabs his hand, gently pulling him along. Once they get in the elevator, he looks at her. So, why is there even a section like this here? I mean, you don't really have much use for it. Making people laugh with your quirk isn't really scary, just embarrassing at best. Despite her technically being his mentor, it feels so easy to talk more casually since he's known her for years online. She nods. Yeah, I don't have much use for it. But Eraserhead used to work here. He's the one who suggested it. She leans against the wall. Hitoshi tilts his head. But didn't he leave? Why keep the horror side? He yawns. Ms. Joke smiles, tapping her hand on her thigh. While he left for his own agency eventually, I kept the idea. Let some less desirable heroes have a place to gather and be themselves. So what? You just shoved all those with a scary quirk into here? He knows it probably isn't the case, but it's the first conclusion he comes to. She stands up straight, shaking her head. Oh, Arceus, no. I give them all a choice. Some of them even wanted to be part of the humor side, and I gladly let them. The elevator comes to a stop, opening up. We're here. The walls down here are painted pure black. Unlike the upstairs, it's dead silent down here, no one in sight. Hitoshi steps out of the elevator, looking around. Such a different vibe compared to upstairs. Ms. Joke nods. Yeah, the soundproofing really helps with that. You see that? There's a long hallway, parallel sets of doors lining the walls. All those are training sessions going on. Am I going to be joining one? He turns to her, shivering a bit from the chilly air down here. She shakes her head, chuckling. Of course not. Those are mostly pros fighting each other, you wouldn't last long. Instead, I'll take you here. She pulls him into a room full of cameras. You'll be analyzing their fights, trying to figure out some of the strategies they use. Then I can try to have some heroes teach them to you. Hitoshi sits in the chair, taking a notebook from a drawer. Luckily Midoriya made sure I had some basic skills in analysis. He takes a pencil out of his pocket. Great, I'll try to help. Her phone beeps. She looks at it before sighing. My work-study student accidentally flooded the kitchen again. Sorry, I have to go deal with that. She puts her phone away. He chuckles. Of course. Just try not to do vandalism while I'm down here or I'm telling the group chat. Ms. Joke walks out the door. No promises. Once he hears the elevator go back up, he turns to the cameras. All right, let's get to this. Himiko walks into the dojo-styled agency. A string gleams from the rafters before falling to the floor, reshaping into edge shot. Good you're here. I assume you picked me since I lean more towards the underground while not being completely unknown. She nods. I wanted some more tips than the basics I got from street life. Wraith follows behind her, hiding from the hero's gaze. Edgeshot puts his hand to his chin. This will be interesting. I haven't often taught past the basics. Does your quirk give you some intuition on the person's personality? As he talks, he begins to lay down a training mat. Unfortunately, no. I usually have to study people or wing it. That had always frustrated her with her quirk. It would be so much easier if she could naturally copy people. He finishes laying down the mat. Well, pretending like you belong can be useful in larger groups, as people don't know others well, so confidence can get you through. Himiko steps forward. Are we going to fight? Her hero costume is still in the suitcase she's holding, along with her knives. Edgeshot shakes his head as he pulls up his sleeve. No, of course not. 2 sidekicks just want to train here soon. Instead, I want you to try to copy my patrol. I'll give you the route, but you need proper acting to avoid raising suspicion. He cuts his arm, letting BLD drip into a cup he pulled out of his pocket. Once the cup is decently filled up, she takes it from him, downing it quickly. But what about villains? I can't use your quirk, and it would be kinda weird to see you using a knife. Not to worry. He points out the window at someone standing on a roof. At this time of day, only common thugs will be a problem. Twister, my newest sidekick, often jumps in and takes care of them before I can. No need for you to fight. She takes a deep breath before transforming, feeling herself gain a decent bit of height. Quite the fit body here, feels different from my dad's. It takes some stretching to get used to it. He lets out a small chuckle. Thanks, I worked strong for it. Now go on, I'll monitor from the city cameras. Himiko walks out the door. Hopefully she remembered enough about how he acted, otherwise this would be a shit show. Mina stands beside Snipe. So, will I get to use a gun that shoots acid or something? She leans forward, bouncing on the ball of her feet. He shakes his head. Nope, that would be impractical. We're looking for usefulness, not gimmicks. You need to spend time testing all of these. He gestures at a wall covered in different types of weapons. Are you sure we can't streamline this? Speed it up a little? She can't even count the sheer number of them. The wall is just completely covered in them. Snipe grabs 2 different types of guns. If you don't like a certain type of weapon, we can narrow it down. But you need to see more. For example, I'm more adept with a pistol. He fires it, leaving a hole in a target. Despite that, I'm not unhappy if I have to use a knife instead. Mina groans. This is going to take forever, but I won't back down. She runs over to the wall, grabbing a staff. Time for the testing. Setsuna's vision spins as she reconnects all her parts, having been slammed down to the mat for probably the 5th time now. Geez, Teach, you're a lot more brutal than Vlad King. I try. Eraserhead tilts his head back, putting some eye drops into his eyes. I think that's enough training for now. You have work to do, but that can wait until patrol. He walks over to the couch. She follows behind him. Patrol? But aren't you underground? Thought they mostly just followed cases given to them, from what my mom said. She sits down on the couch, glancing at the cat scratches on the arm of it, dug deep into the fabric. He sighs. It depends. Some do it that way, usually the ones with more brute force skill. We're more of the hunting type. I'll show you how to patrol, gather information, and take down villains. Makes sense? She grins. Eraserhead walks towards his own bedroom in the agency. Unfortunately, there's no guest room, so you'll have to sleep there and wait until we can patrol. She opens her mouth, but he glares at her. No, you're not having my bed. He walks away into his own room. She pouts before laying back on the couch. Guess I have to sleep. Setsuna picks a random 5-hour video essay to sleep to before laying down and shutting her eyes. Denki takes a deep breath as he stares up at the agency that towers over him. Most people wouldn't expect him to take an agency like this, but if he helped Midoriya's friend with his quirk, well, he could use the assistance. Just as he thinks that, the friend in question steps out. Hey, Midoriya has told me a lot about you. Nice to meet you. Togata smiles at him, holding out a hand. He shakes his hand. Nice to meet you too. So, you think Sir Night Eye will be able to help me with my quirk? Togata starts to walk inside, gesturing for him to follow. Of course. He helped me with mine. I used to constantly end up going but naked or getting stuck inside things back then. But now I can actually hold my own in a brawl. He flexes his arm. Hopefully he'll extend that to me, though he seems pretty strict. Would he even tolerate a goofball like me? Zip Zap crawls onto his shoulder, happily feeding on the electricity coming off him. As they step out of the lobby, Togata shakes his head. Oh, don't worry. Even though he's a pretty strict guy, he loves humor. He stops in front of the door. You just have to go in there and be yourself. Denki takes a deep breath before stepping into the room. The first thing he notices is the plentiful collection of All Might memorabilia. Some of this stuff would sell for millions, and it's all kept in this one office. Instead of speaking, Sir Knight just stares at him menacingly, waiting for him to speak. People asked me how it feels when you stick your finger in an electrical outlet. To be honest, it hurts. As soon as he speaks, he wants to facepalm. That was the dumbest pun he's ever done. After a moment of awkward silence, Sir Knight can't help but let out an amused huff. Well, that's a new one. He gestures at the other seat in front of his desk. He walks over, sitting in the seat. I'll be honest, I'm surprised I even remembered Hertz. I'm not always the brightest bulb dash. Sir Knight flicks his forehead. No self-deprecating jokes. The more you say then, the more you believe them, and heroes already have at least a 45% chance of developing depression. He pulls out a battery, sitting it on the desk. Zip Zap hops off his shoulder, biting the battery and starting to drain the electricity. Hey, I didn't know you knew about Pokemon. Denki pets Zip Zap as she feeds. Is this Joltik a creation from your Quirk? Seems unlikely, but I do have to wonder how there even is a Pokemon here. He pushes up his glasses. Denki shakes his head. No, Sir Knight. She was made by Midoriya's Quirk instead. Sir Knight nods. I see. Also, call me Sir. It's shorter, and even a few extra seconds of distraction by talking could decide a battle. He turns to his laptop, rapidly typing on it. He leans forward, petting Zip Zap some more just because she's too cute. Understood, sir. Sure, Sir seems strict, but he also seems pretty fair. He even explains things pretty well, which his brain definitely needs after some of the math classes he's had recently. Well, you should head to the training room with Togata. We need a baseline of your strengths. Sir turns back towards him. You can go now. I'll be watching from the cameras as I finish a report. Denki stands up, nodding. Makes sense. He picks up the battery with Zip Zap on it, getting to the door before turning around. Also, sir? Sir Knight looks up. Yes, Kaminari? If you plant a light bulb, does it grow into a power plant? He grins stupidly at his own pun. Luckily, Sir snorts at it. Good one. Now go and train, I don't tolerate slackers. As Denki leaves, Sir goes back to whatever report he's working on. Tokoyami Fumikage sits in the nest of pillows in the center of the room. This is surprisingly comfortable. Hawk falls backwards, landing in the nest. I know, right? Technically I'm not supposed to have it out with guests around, but I'm sure it's fine. His persona still feels a bit off to him, but at least he's a decent mentor. I don't mind. Todoroki lays across from them, splayed out on the pillows as Tayumi curls up on his tea, much better than being at my father's house. He pets Tayumi. Dark shadow pops out of him. It's really nice. We gotta make one of these in our room, Fumi. She buries herself in the pillows. Hawks looks at Todoroki, tilting his head. I gotta ask, what's the issue between you and your dad? Personally, I like him as a hero. He pulls a bucket of chicken out from under a pillow, starting to eat a bit of it. Todoroki looks at Hawks, staring intensely into his eyes like he's studying something. He isn't as dedicated to being a good father as he is to being a good hero. I don't think you would understand the rest, even though you seem like me. Huh. Hawks shakes his head out of confusion, standing up. Well, I'm not going to question that. But I can go get you guys some food after the training we did. Any requests? He spreads his wings as he steps towards the balcony. Fumikage looks at him. Some apples, if you would not mind. Dark Shadow giggles at the request, but he just pushes more pillows down onto her. Todoroki sits up, letting Tayumi lay on his lap. I'll take some cold soba. Hawks gives them both a thumbs up. Got it? He walks out to the balcony, leaping off it. They both watch as he flies away from the agency. So, why did you choose Hawks? Fumikage looks at Todoroki. I expected you to go for someone who could allow your unique skill set to thrive. He leans back against the pillows, letting him relax his tired muscles from the earlier training. His classmate pets Teyumi before looking up at him. Hawks has shown that he is much smarter than he lets on, so he could still help my quirk, though I didn't know that until today. I went with Hawks because it made my SPRM donor livid. Todoroki's blank expression changes to the smallest smirk he's ever seen. Dark shadow pops out of the pillows. Oh, daddy issues. Makes sense with that oversized incinerator. She reaches over to pet Teyumi. Teyumi purrs at the contact, making Todoroki smile a bit. Why did you two go with Hawks? He doesn't have a sentient quirk like you two. He lays down on the pillows. Fumikage and Dark Shadow look at each other. Bird. They both speak in unison. Todoroki nods. Makes sense, Bird. Izuku pulls out a water bottle, drinking some of it. I gotta say, that was some good sparring. I'm so used to using the moves, but quirkless sparring isn't too bad either. Minoma chuckles. Now you see how the rest of us have to fight? Loki and Ace both stare at each other, Ace transformed into a Ditto and Loki transformed into a Mew. Apex walks back into the room. Sorry, I had some business to attend to. I see that the sparring went well. He walks in front of them. Well, I suppose I should show my quirk some, to let you two know what you'll learn. He grabs one of the ball of energy off his belt. They're made of a mix of black and white, constantly flowing and changing. This is an animal soul. The first part of my quirk allows me to turn them into these. I only keep the ones I trust on me. This is my hawk, Surge. He holds the orb carefully. Izuku holds a notebook in his hand, quickly jotting down the information. How do you make them into the animals you use in combat? They seem far too varied for those colors. Maybe outside factors? As he rambles, Ace floats over to Nebi and Nimbus, both cleaning the floor. Apex nods. Yes, I need external factors to form them. Usually a material or element to absorb. They all have their preferences though. He grabbed another ball, tossing it at a small block of metal. The orb shatters, the energy eating into the metal, taking a good chunk of it before forming into a small, metallic mole. Its red eyes stare into them before it speeds over to Apex. This is Digmo. He prefers any type of metal and loves to dig. He reaches down, touching him and absorbing the energy into another ball, leaving a chunk of malformed metal that he kicks away. He tosses the other orb, having it hit a power outlet. The energy goes into the socket, disappearing before electricity crackles, something shooting out of the outlet. A hawk made of pure electricity flies around his head. Izuku looks up at Surge. Wow. Not even many Pokemon are just pure manifestations of energy. So cool, he jotted it down in his notes. Minoma stretches before leaning against the wall. I have to ask, why did you choose me? Sure, I have Loki, but I'm no full Beastmaster like you. Apex sighs. I guess this will have to happen now. He takes off his mask. Without it, they can see his black hair and red eyes, but that isn't what their minds focus on. His face is scarred. 3 diagonal slices, carved deep into his face, from his forehead to his chin. They just barely miss his eyes, but they do leave part of his lip missing, showing the gums beneath. It leaves him looking almost mangled. Quirks are like animals. He stares at them. Some are docile, yes, but others are even hostile to the user. Because of this, my lessons fit you both. He walks over to a wolf skull on a shelf, making a soul orb from it, the colors in it writhing like a caged beast. Apex holds the orb towards them. This is the animal that scarred me. I called her Athena. Now, while I will warn that with animals and quirks, some can be outright dangerous, this was not the case. Instead, what happened was my fault. He takes a deep breath. I broke her trust. I pushed her too strong and she fought back. He lets the soul orb fade. This is a lesson. Trust is not given but earned. It can be broken, so make sure not to treat anything as tools. Human, animal, quirk, it doesn't matter. Apex puts his mask back on. But that's enough of that. Now, it's time for some proper training. He heads down a set of stairs, motioning for them to follow. The lesson sticks to Izuku's mind. It made him think of Ida, who quickly shattered his trust. It made him think of Ida's Pokemon, being used as just a tool against Stain. He should have taken that Pokemon back when he had the chance. Monoma, though, clearly doesn't have anything as deep to connect it to. Was that lesson technically trauma dumping? Izuku facepalms. Apex stands in front of them, leaning on a metal pillar. The floor below them feels padded, like a training mat. Today, we need to focus on fighting alongside your beastly partners. Midoriya, you'll train with me. Monoma, you get to train with Digmo's buddy, Titan. He holds out the soul orb, taking a deep breath as it grows before shattering, turning the entire pillar of metal into one large bear. Izuku pulls out the origin ball, opening it to release Ace. The two of them rush at Apex, only to get knocked back by a burst of soul energy before he reforms a soul orb he pulled out. Apex puts away the orb. Don't both rush at an opponent. You should split, one attacking from a distance as the other getting up close. Who depends on the pairing. He holds out his hand, gesturing for them to come at him. He feels fighting-type energy pooling into his palms, preparing to use one of his newer moves. Izuku dashes forward, ducking under a punch as he slams his hands into Apex's CC palm first. Force palm knocks the wind out of their opponent, though he quickly jumps away. Ice shards fly through the air, Ace using her tail to chuck them at Apex. While he's distracted, Izuku takes a deep breath, focusing on his shadow. His own shadow stretches along the ground, warping into a mass of darkness that slides under Apex. Two ropes shoot out of the shadow, wrapping around his limbs to harshly slam him into the floor before his shadow fades. Shadow sneak finished. Ace takes the chance, swiping at Apex with draconic claws. After just a few swipes, he hops up, kicking her away. Alright, that's enough of a warm-up. Now I'll fight back. He pulls out a soul orb, but Izuku opens his mask, lick extending his tongue like Tsu to slap it away. Ace returns to her ball, so he tosses out the dusk ball, letting Ecto pop out. She flies at him, swerving around and into his scarf, liking the back of his neck before flying back away. Izuku leaps forward, garbage appearing out of nowhere as he prepares another move. A fist slams into his windpipe, sending him down to the ground as he coughs, holding his neck. He still uses his other hand, letting the garbage from his memories of training mix together before he launches it. Ecto slams into Apex's ST with payback, knocking him into the path of garbage. The full force of gunk shot slams into him, covering him in a pile of trash before it all fades. Apex sits up, picking up the discarded soul orb, shattering it in his hand. The air itself is pulled into it, creating a small spider made of the air itself, though oddly tinted light green. Come on now, help me out, Artemis. Izuku tries to stand, but he can't help the constant coughing, even as Ecto comes over to help him up. Unfortunately, when he looks up, he sees a bow and arrow made of air webs from Artemis. When he looks closer, he can see some purple bubbles coming out of Apex's few wounds. He's poisoned. He ducks under the first volley of arrows, but the second volley slams into his back. Gah! Oh, that's gonna bruise. He turns around, using dragon breath to blow away the next volley. Still, he can't stop the next one, bracing for the hits. But then he looks at Ecto. A colorful light covers her body, reshaping her. Her head grows, 3 spikes coming out of each side. A jagged tail pops out behind her before 2 clawed hands come out, catching a bundle of air arrows as her evolution finishes. Haunter. Ecto's main body is made of the dense dark purple fog, keeping her looking nearly solid. At the spikes, tail, and the back of her hands, though, it fades off into misty light blue, flowing upwards before fading away. As Ecto keeps snatching up the arrows, Izuku holds out his hands, purple wisps circling around his wrists. He quickly closes them into fists. A purple glow surrounds Apex's wounds, making the man stumble as the attack lets the poison fuel it. Fine then, I think you've had enough with me holding back. Apex rushes forward, wielding air webs weaved into claws on his fingertips. Ecto tries to lick him, but he grabs her tongue to toss her away. Izuku tries to hit him with rock smash, but his legs get swept before he can throw the punch. Apex plants a boot on his. Not bad, you have some experience already. But we aren't done. His aura pulses with silent excitement, making Izuku shiver as he gets back up for another round. Shinso sits in the chair of the observation room, taking the chance to get in some deep breaths as he wipes sweat off his brow. After observing, he had spent a while actually learning techniques. Sounds almost fun. That is, until he has to sneak up on Chuckles, a clown hero who lets out unholy screeches whenever he notices him. Or trying to evade Watcher, whose body is literally covered in eyes. He just had to escape while being chased down by Arachmus. They can transform into a mass of spiders that move at speeds that are way too fast for any arachnid to manage. It didn't help that he had to listen to Ms. Joke laughing her butt off for basically the entire time. After that, he's entitled to a little revenge. He looks around for anything he can actually use to enact it. Oddly convenient. There's a hidden drawer under the desk, labeled Revenge. Shinso opens it up, finding a jar of honey that he quickly grabs. He gets onto all fours, sneaking into the open vent. Perfect for training. Revenge is basically training, right? Luckily, a lot of quirks required more air filtration for safety, so a lot of vents had to be made larger, as the technology to make them filter air fast enough without it is expensive. That way, he can crawl through the vents up to Ms. Joke's office. Through the vent grates in the ceiling, he can see her sit down. Oh boy, time for the paperwork. Shinso grins, silently opening the jar of honey. She flinches before sighing. Of course, they decided to bring back the honey air freshener. I thought I burned it. She holds her nose shut, continuing to work. He tries to carefully move the vent grate, barely avoiding it hitting anything as he sits it behind him. Shinso sets his phone to record as he slams the jar downwards. As soon as it shattered on the floor, she leapt out of her seat. No. Not again, you stupid, scary, fr. Ms. Joke opens a hidden trapdoor, pulling out a flamethrower. His eyes widened. Oh no. Softipex. Why did I just get an alert that the Laughingstock Agency was suddenly on fire? Baby Eraser. What I thought was on at Friendly Pranks level turned out to be YouTuber Pranks level. Anxiety manifested. You used the honey? Baby Eraser. I used the honey. Peekaboo. I thought I would have gotten to use the honey first. I still needed to get back at for scaring me out of my clothes when she visited me in UA last year. Contagious laughter. I hate all of you. Alien Queen. Oh come on, we didn't expect you to resort to arson. A bit overboard for a bit of honey, isn't it? Contagious laughter. You don't understand the things that Rat did with the honey. I can still feel it in my ear, sticking it shut. Crimson Cat. How did she even light so much stuff on fire so quickly? Baby Eraser. She's very adept with a flamethrower. Scarily skilled. Eigengraukorvus. Why would she even go that far just over honey? I don't even think honey is that flammable. Baby Eraser. Apparently, with enough determination, fear, and flamethrower fuel, anything is flammable. Reverly Corvus. Fear can be a powerful drive for destruction, as the past has shown us. It seems the MSTR of laughter harbors a destructive side. Soft Apex. When she first completed the training, she tried to get permission to have a bomb in her building to destroy any honey. The flamethrower was the tame alternative. Contagious laughter. I needed strength to threaten that rat to keep honey away. Crimson Cat. Personally? Sounds like a skill issue. Contagious laughter. Now listen here, you little sheet. Contagious laughter is typing. Himiko snickers to herself as she puts away her phone. All right, you said you wanted me to test something? Edshot nods. Yes. I know you transform from BLD, but what happens if you have drunk several people's BLD? He sits down on the floor. Well, my body kinda stores the BLD? Where, I don't know, but I can essentially pick which one to use at will. Wraith hides behind her, curled up into a ball while napping. He pulls out several different vials of BLD, holding them between his fingers. I had a simple idea. What if you tried to use all of them at once? This may go wrong, but don't worry. I have alternative methods if needed. She takes the vials. Bottoms up. She chugs all of them at once before trying to use them to transform. The difference is immediate. Normally, her transformation almost feels like a gentle embrace, a new form covering her and letting her play a new role. This was a boa constrictor choosing her as a prey. Layers of gray sludge form on her body, solidifying into masses of muscle and fat that bring her to the floor immediately. She can feel different types of hair fighting for depths, several faces melding together. Himiko groans as she lets the transformation fall off of her, a larger mass of sludge than usual. Ed's shot helps her off the ground, sighing. Unfortunate, but it was one of the expected outcomes. Wraith chomps down on his calf, hissing as he scratches him too. Himiko picks Wraith up once she can stand, pulling him away. Hey bad. No biting. Wraith pouts, but he stops struggling. Well, I still have an alternative. Do the same as before, but isolate each BLD sample to specific parts of you. If it works, it could make a good disguise. He pulls out several more BLD vials, handing them to her. She hesitates for a moment before downing the new vials. She tries to focus one sample to the hair and eyes, another to the skin color and any skin blemishes, and the last one to the body type and clothes. This transformation felt new. It felt like a warm patchwork blanket wrapping around her. Looking into a mirror, she sees this body. Long, BLD red hair, paired with blazing orange eyes. Tan skin dotted with freckles, a star-shaped birthmark on her palm. A tall and lanky body covered by an oversized hoodie and jeans. While it worked, Ed's shot pats her on the back. Now, not only do you have a disguise, but it can't be tracked down to endanger any civilian. Even if it won't help for infiltrations, it will work for escaping situations. Himiko grins. This is perfect. The BLD bags I have give me multiple DNA samples, so I could use those to always have a disguise ready. She drops the disguise, smiling. Now, we need to test your ability to hide in plain sight. He points out the door. You have the entire city and 5 minutes to prepare. Started. Now. He turns into a thread, going into a back room. She turns to the door. Sheet. She starts running, preparing her next disguise as she moves. Shoto looks off the balcony, the only light coming from the shining moon. Is this safe? Or humane? Tokoyami looks at him, being held in Hawk's arms. Stop this, avian menace. There are better methods for this. Dark Shadow keeps trying to pry his hands off of them both. Hawks ignores him, responding to Shoto instead. Probably? Before he can question further, Hawks tosses Tokoyami off the balcony, watching Dark Shadow form on him like a glider suit. See? I knew it would work. Shoto shrugs. I felt worse training. I'm not even going to question that. Hawks picks him up, flying him up to the rooftop training field. Before we start with this, I'll ask this. How does it feel using your fire compared to using your ice? Describe in detail, though not as much as some essays. He floats off the ground. He thinks for a moment. My ice feels like a tendril, extending from me and following my command, though I lack fine control. My fire feels like a grenade, exploding out of me whenever I call on it. While I could form some weapons out of it in my battle, I haven't been able to replicate that. He holds out his hand, letting a pillar of flame burst out for emphasis. Hawks nods. All right, a bit weird, but all right. He puts his hand on his chin. Well, you're currently having it come out of your whole palm. Try one finger. Shoto points his hand out, trying to have it come out of one finger. A stream of flames comes out, before a beam of flame comes out of his whole hand. He pulls on them, bringing them back so they don't burn anything. Well, that isn't ideal. Hawk sighs. Well, the only way I can see you increasing your output is practice. He lets some of his feathers wander. Well, while that fire is out, might as well practice shaping it. Copy me. He makes a ball out of feathers. The fire reshapes into a bunch of orbs, floating around him. It feels unruly, trying to break out of the shape. He uses his ice to cool him down some. Hawks reshapes it into a cube. We'll just have to keep practicing until it listens to you. They continue like that, using several basic shapes to practice as Tokoyami screeches with his attempts to fly. Denki walks into the training room, yawning. Man, we're really starting early today. He's already in his hero outfit. Sir Night Eye walks out. We spent yesterday testing your skills, so we need to get ahead and start on progress today. He sits at a desk in the corner of the room. I remember seeing you use the shock traps in the sports festival to increase your speed. Have you tried using your own electricity for that? Zip-Zap sneaks into the room, crawling onto the desk. There's already a battery there for her to immediately latch onto. He thinks for a moment before facepalming. Why didn't I think of that? He focuses his own electricity, feeling it surge through his muscles. Hey, it doesn't feel like it's depleting. Electricity surges between his palms when he holds them close. A current through your body. Unexpected, but useful. Sir Night-Eye types something out. Well, we need you to get used to using this. Mirko, come on out. He opens a door with a button press. Mirko runs out in his hero costume. Alright, let's get to this. Should we just spar, or do anything specific? He tilts his head. Sir Night-Eye doesn't look away from the computer. While speed is useful, he needs the reaction time to think properly at those speeds. While later, you can give him tips for this. First he needs to know his starting point. Mirko nods. Alright, let's go. He drops into the ground as his quirk activates. Denki sprints to the left, nearly stumbling over his feet as he dodges Mirko. Before he can move again, a fist slams into his side, throwing him into a wall. He fills his body with more volts, feeling like there's static on his skin from the tingly sensation. Another punch barely misses him, and he can't react fast enough to shock him. He rolls to the side, only to get knocked up into the air by a punch. When he lands, he loses hold of the electricity. This was harder than I thought. I almost short-circuited. Mirko helps him up. Yeah, Midoriya mentioned you're short-circuiting. He was worried for you. He pats him on the back. Sir Night-Eye sits up straighter. That reminds me, I'll need to get some diagnostics done to try and figure out the cause of that. He types far faster than any human should be able to. Should be able to fit them in for later today. I suppose you should focus on giving him tips for now. You got it, sir. Mirko pulls out a bundle of cards. These are flash cards with numbers on them. You have to run around me, telling me what's on them each time even while going that fast. Midoriya thought up that one, though Sir workshopped it to fit me. He grins. Denki looks at the cards. I'm going to hate this, aren't I? Mirko nods. Probably. Denki groans. Tomura sits down at the bar, glancing up at the TV. Sensei, are you sure I have to try and recruit this psycho? He's literally a serial killer for heroes. Monty hides under his seat, eating a bit of fish. The TV crackles to life. Of course, he can be very useful. Sensei's voice stays light and condescending, speaking down to him. It feels like he has some sort of hidden motive though, especially since the camera light stays shining red. A portal opens up, the hero killer landing in a crouch. Who are you to interrupt my mission? I was just about to pounce on another fake. He holds out his katana. You've been brought here to join the League of Villains. We both want to cut down Hero Society, after all. Despite how much he despises this, he still has to play the role so he doesn't anger Sensei. Stain steps forward. I want to call the fakes. While you hunger for dashed, he glances up at the TV. Oh, I see now. He dashes forward. Tomura stumbles back, leaning onto the bar. What the hell? Monty peeks out, growling. The hero killer stalks towards him. Your words are not your own. Puppets like you are as fake as they come, so I need to show your true colors. He stabs the katana downwards, right at Monty. No. Tomura grabs the blade, slicing his palms open while it disintegrates in his grip. As soon as it fully disintegrates, Stain looks him in the eyes. I see a spark of heroism in you. I will give you a chance to grow, but I have my own goal to achieve. Send me back to Hosu. He tosses the useless handle away as he turns around. Kurogiri opens a portal, one which the hero killer immediately leaps through. A voice comes out of the TV. Well, it appears he won't be good for the League. Though at least I got to identify his quirk. BLD-based paralysis quirk, activated by his saliva. Could at least be a good quirk for a Pokenormal. Tomura sits up, wiping the BLD off his hands using a wipe from Kurogiri. Can I go now, Sensei? Monty climbs up, hugging him. But doesn't being compared to a hero make you angry? I'm sure you want to retaliate against him. The condescending tone drips from every word, though Tomura doesn't respond. No? What, are you having doubts? You're my successor, the leader of the league. Anything you want gone, you can destroy it, you have true freedom. The words feel almost hypnotic, but he turns away. Monty rubs against his Sensei, can I just go handle my wounds? I'm tired and I doubt revenge will be useful. He looks at the cuts, digging decently deep into his palms. The hypnotic tone drips in an instant, pure disappointment replacing it. I see. Despite everything I've given you, you're having doubts? Then tomorrow, I'll send Nomu to Hosu for the league. I'm sure that will reignite your longing for destruction. Tomura's eyes wide as the red light turns off. He looks at his phone, quickly searching something up before looking at Kurogiri. Giri, please make me a portal to Jaku, preferably in an alley. Kurogiri nods. Alright. I trust you, though I would appreciate an explanation from you upon your return. Stay safe and make me proud. Kurogiri's voice sounds strained, like he's trying to push past some invisible obstacle. He creates the portal, one that Tomura and Monty both run through. Izuku follows Apex. Ace sits on his shoulder, helping keep a watchful eye on his surroundings. Not many people pay attention to them, seemingly fine just ignoring the patrols. Monoma poses as one person takes a picture, Loki waving at the camera. Why do so few people even notice you anyways? I mean, you're pretty recognizable. Loki goes back to casually sitting on his shoulder. Apex chuckles. They just don't care about me. I'm not a very popular hero, and I'm never good for the camera. Now, do either of you know why we patrol? Despite him breaking several soul orbs as he left, there's no animals beside him. Izuku glances at him. Well, for most heroes, it's done to reassure the public and catch minor crimes. For most people, yes. But for us? Patrols are a hunt. He points up. When he looks up, there seems to be a flock of airbirds, spreading throughout the city. They usually alert me to any crime that they spot. Some of them they can deal with alone, which the media hates. He sighs. Monoma shakes his head. Of course. You stole a good show from them. Obviously they expected you to battle the villain in a long, drawn-out show. His voice drips with sarcasm. Apex's head perks up. There's a robbery nearby. I'll take it. Phantom thief, focus on crowd control. Arceus, keep an eye out in case we have a runner. He sprints forward towards a convenience store, Monoma following him. Izuku goes to run forward, but a water gun hits him in the leg. Oh, right in the ankle. Which one of his Pokemon decided to prank him this time? Wait. None of his Pokemon have water gun. He sprints into the alley it came from, dragon claws sharpening on his fingertips. Izuku spots Shigaraki, pinning him to the wall by his throat. What the hell are you doing here? Acid drips from his lips. Shigaraki coughs, raising his hands. Hey, I come in peace. Like hell you do. Now you better let me detain you here, or else I'm going to dash. He feels something headbutt his ankle lightly. It's a Croconaw, one that starts to pull on his ankle. It feels like Shigaraki's Pokemon. After a few more seconds, he lets Shigaraki go. The villain fell to his knees, coughing. Ding, you have a mean grip for a kid. Should have expected that after the last time. Shigaraki stands up, brushing himself off. Izuku turns to him, taking a deep breath. Explain why you have a Pokemon and why it seems to actually care for you. Maybe they were right, and he had actually changed. Seeing him without the hands on him feels weird, but it also seems to make his aura much calmer. Well, Kurogiri had stolen 3 eggs, but one of them felt like it was mine, so I kept it from the doctor. He points at the Croconaw. That's Monty. He can't help but snort. Really? You named him after a FNAF animatronic? Shigaraki tosses a pebble at him. Oh, shut up. He sighs. As I was saying, once he hatched, I noticed that my destructive tendencies had started to fade. Sensei's words seemed less and less kind as I noticed the condescending tone behind it. Monty rubs against his legs, making him smile slightly. Izuku moves his hand away from his phone behind his back. Seems like he won't need backup or anything. This feels truthful. But why come here? I'm sure you know that he won't be easy to escape. He still doesn't feel comfortable around him, but better than before. Yeah, kinda FING obvious? Shigaraki sighs. Well, All for One is planning on attacking Hosu with Nomu tomorrow to try and get me to listen. So I came to you to warn you. He leans against the wall. He uses levitate as he sits down on air, taking a deep breath. He has more of those goddamn things? Draconic smoke leaks from his mouth when Shigaraki nods. Great, just great. I have to ask, how did you even know where I'd be? Shigaraki grins. You told me yourself, poke my... And bolt, of course. Izuku stumbles, falling to the floor as levitate fails. Wait, you're dusty? Were you pretending to be my friend this whole time? Metal claws form at his fingertips, pulsing with aura. He rapidly shakes his head. No. I just got bored and decided to try and find some identities. I laughed my butt off once I realized we were both friends and mortal enemies. Shigaraki chuckles. I didn't expect the electric kid to be Bolt, either. What, actually, that makes far too much sense. Izuku stands up, taking a deep breath. I'll trust you just this once. He pulls out an empty pokeball, using the arc phone to turn it into a dive ball. Take this from Monty as a sign of trust. Shigaraki's eyes widened. An arc phone? Then that's cool. He takes the dive ball. The attack should start tomorrow night. Wish you luck, Pokemon. He grins at him as a portal opens behind him. He nods at him as he puts away the phone. Don't die, Dusty. As Shigaraki goes through the portal, Izuku sprints forward, trying to catch up to Apex. Diargaraki's notes. Charged beast. Biologically a fairy type, modified to add the electric typing. Others of the same species rejected any electricity-producing quirks, added the electricity-producing organ of another species into its CGS teach stabilized quickly. Responded well to the body modification. Specimen now has a golden skeleton, along with golden implants in the brain to allow for faster thought and easier control. Has limited thoughts, but still follows orders. Super smell proved to be a useful addition, leaving the specimen unable to be snuck up on in most cases. Charged muscles pairs well with the electricity-producing organ. The specimen uses the quirk for faster movement, leaving it able to crush average humans with ease. These early subjects seem to only be able to handle 2 quirks at most. Testing will be required to try and improve the amount. Specimen excelled in training. Outclassed average members of its species. Able to win fights even against species that are super effective against it. Ready for use. Why do some species randomly reject certain quirk types? I'll have to look for a pattern. This restriction limits my creativity far too much. Canis Pack. Biologically a rock type. Type left unchanged. Species seemed oddly hostile towards body modification, often ripping out any implants put in them. Tended to rile up other specimens whenever they were put in waiting chambers. Interestingly, they seemed the most protective around the younger members of their species, leading to the quirk idea. Pack Leader was a unique quirk. One of the few obtained from old QA labs, still rife with quirked animals. Hypnotizes members of the same species to follow the user. Specimens tended to use this best with 4 unevolved members of the species. Vampire was just to add to the power of the specimen. Increased strength based on ingested BLD amount. The specimen seemed almost excited with this one, despite the fact that they're meant to be emotionless. Specimen went too far in training. When meant to work with other specimens, it tended to view them as another threat. Its battle capabilities are astounding, but a bit more tweaking is needed before a mission. 97% ready. These creatures seem to be resistant to most of my usual methods to leave them emotionless. I need to find more methods. These beasts would be a force to be reckoned with if they just let me modify them. Limbic Inferno. Originally a fire and flying type. However, the Mu DNA changed it to be a biological fire psychic type. While Mu DNA has enough energy to get close to Mega Evolution, a dose of infinity energy will be needed to get Mega Evolution and control at the same time. Specimen is too far gone for this treatment. Specimen shed its wings during the transformation process. Those wings have been replaced with psychic wings. Testing reveals a near 150% increase in durability compared to the physical wings. Any of these subjects seem resistant to quirks, seeming to somehow shed off the DNA with quirks in it. Unfortunate, but the results are unique enough to make up for it. All of these specimens seem to mix types together seamlessly, something that would be impossible in the Pokemon world. They end up more powerful than even our quirked specimens with this rudimentary version of the full product. Refer to the document on Psycho Sniper. This specimen in particular seems to psychically control flames. They seem to be connected to emotions, stronger emotions increasing the heat of the flames. The flames can be shaped into crude shapes, mostly walls and cones so far. Specimen excelled in training. Not only does it have the power necessary, but it has heightened intelligence that allows it to lead other specimens in battle. Best for pure destruction, but should always be the leader of its group. Ready for use. The data from these alone are inherently exciting. Mew DNA clearly has lots of secret possibilities hidden in it, and he intended to find every bit of it. If Shadow manages to collect more DNA, then I may be about to revolutionize this whole operation. Izuku teleports over to Apex. The criminal is already being pushed into a police car, the media having walked off after realizing that they wouldn't get a good story. Apex looks at him. Now, you better have a good reason for why you abandoned your post. No excuses, just an explanation. Other than a slight scratch on his mask, he's untouched by the battle. I spoke with Shigaraki. He looks up at Apex, noticing Minoma's shocked face too. He was in an alley. He warned me that his sensei was planning on attacking Hosu with Nomu. Ace rubs her head on his cheek. The whole bird flock returns to Apex, getting turned into soul orbs. Teleport us back to the agency. I trust that his aura was truthful? Izuku nods. My aura reading doesn't exactly work like that, but he seemed to be truthful. He uses teleport to bring them all back to the agency building. Minoma leans towards him. Are we really going to trust Shigaraki? He nearly killed you. Loki isn't nearly as concerned, going off to play with Ace. She's probably just trying to serve as a distraction. Apex heads over to the wall, opening it up to reveal a large computer. He's all we got. Eraserhead also mentioned an anonymous informant mentioning that he could change, so this fits well with that data. He starts typing. I just need to get us some assistance. Izuku places his hand on Minoma's shoulder. Listen, I know you're worried, but I don't want to see Hosu burn. Plus, I can purify those Nomu. I can save them. That you're lucky that I trust you. Minoma sighs, standing up straight. Let's get some training in first. He walks towards the training room. Izuku quickly follows, pulling out his Pokeballs. Despite him hiding it, he said that even more Pokemon are corrupted. Maybe training will burn through his rage. Izuku walks into the meeting room, looking around to see who's there. Surprisingly, there are only 3 heroes in there. Even more surprisingly, Sir Night Eye is one of them, and his aura is filled with betrayal each time he looks at Izuku. Fun. He sits beside Minoma, both of them waving at Mirko. He waves back. Hey you two. How have your internships been? Minoma puts on the most dead smile possible. I had to fight a goddamn metal bear. Mostly quirkless. He points at Apex. I managed to touch him once, and even then I was only able to use some bug souls in the room. Eventually won once, but it was hell. He groans. Before Mirko can respond, Apex claps to get everyone's attention. Alright, did you all read the briefings I sent? Everyone nods. Good. That information I mentioned was specifically Shigaraki. On a patrol, he warned Arceus about tomorrow's planned attack. While we can't stop it, we can try to minimize the damage. Sir Night Eye leans forward. Why should we trust him? He's attacked UA before, and he decided to tell a child instead of a hero. He raises an eyebrow. Kaminari taps his mentor's shoulder. Considering that Midoriya can read emotions, I think he would be able to notice a lie. I rescind my previous statement. A mixture of displeasure and pride spikes in his aura. Apex shows a map of Hosu on the screen. I suggest that I patrol the center of the city, as from there my birds can see the entire city. Eraserhead, you take the east part of it. It has lots of flat roofs, and you excel with a height advantage. He points at the west part of the city. Sir Night Eye, you'll get the west portion. No advantages or disadvantages for you there. He puts his hands on the table. Aizawa, no, Eraserhead here, looks at Apex. What about the interns? I can understand Mirio helping, but they don't have provisional licenses. I accounted for that. Apex points at the interns. You all will be focused on crowd control. Do not engage in combat without strict permission from your supervisors. Understood? All of them nod. Good. We head out tomorrow. The next day, they all sit in a train car. Izuku leans back. What heroes will be here other than us? Sir Night Eye looks up. Native and Manual are the main ones here, though Endeavor and some others came to hunt for Stain. He pulls out his phone. Now that you mention that, I should warn them about this. Lethal Force is a loud dash. He's cut off by a growl. Mighty and Chip pop out of their ball, growling as they glare at the hero. Izuku gently pets their heads to calm them down. I can change the Noma back to their Pokemon forms. Capture should be the main focus. He puts them back in their ball. We don't want needless death. Apex cuts off Sir Night Eye before he can argue. We just have to make sure Endeavor gets the message and listens. He taps the side of his mask, mumbling something into it. Despite looking like he wants to argue, Sir Night Eye looks away. His aura still spikes with betrayal and disappointment when he looks at Izuku, though his scowl made that obvious enough even without his aura reading. All for One possesses another body, this time in Absol. He walks over to the doctor. Are the plans coming along nicely? The doctor nods. Yes. Shadow did well, placing down everything we needed. Hosu will be destroyed once we're done. He gestures at the screen, showing all the red dots on the map of Hosu. Perfect. He grins as he looks at the screen. This should be better than any villainous plans in the games. Granted, in a more localized area than most, but still. Are the Nomu ready? His claws tap on the floor. He gestures at the 3 vats in the back of the room. Yes. I've also been dosing them with Trigger. Should make them even more formidable, though it isn't as effective on Pokemon as it is on humans. 2 vats are filled with green liquid, while the center one has bright pink fluid inside. Not only were Mu DNA Nomus, or Berserkers, much more feral than other Nomu, but they also were harder to subdue. They had to concoct a special fluid to keep it both safe and docile. It took adding some more anesthetics to the batch, along with some Mu DNA. They don't have an infinite supply of it, and the more they clone it, the more unstable it gets. All for 1 points at the shadow on the screen. Has it been ordered correctly for after the destruction? The doctor nods, twirling a pen in between his fingers. Yes. It's been told to collect any Mu DNA. If Midoriya arrives as you predicted, then we could get a large supply boost. Perfect. Continue preparations then, Doctor. He returns to his body, the aches and pains coming to his mind again. Even hyper-regeneration doesn't seem to fix chronic pain, even after all these years. At least everything is going to plan. He's going to make sure he's far more successful than Maxie, Archie, or Cyrus. Hosu will fall. Eventually, Japan will follow. The sun finally sets over Hosu. People are leaving their late shifts, watching heroes patrol through the city. Maybe getting a snack at one of the few food stalls, or stopping in a cafe for a quick drink. It's a calm night. That's when it starts. Kaboom! The gas line explodes, breaking through the pavement as the blaze erupts out of it through the city. More explosions erupt throughout the city, planted bombs being set off as they devastate the city. Civilians scream as they try to run from the flames that start to consume the city. Hosu police station explodes on every corner, reducing the building to rubble. The hospital's support beams get blown to shreds, making the building crumble in on itself. The few skyscrapers are destabilized, collapsing onto the streets in a landslide of rubble. Even homeless shelters aren't safe, collapsing and crushing the people inside. People start screaming for the heroes, desperate for help. Heroes try to run and help, but there's just too many injured civilians. Just when it seemed to be as bad as it could be, black mist grew in 3 parts of the city. They formed into full portals, letting out the beasts inside. In the east, a canine monster claws its way out of the portal. The once white sections of fur on it have turned a dull gray, its red parts of fur covered in scars. Its eyes glow BLD red, matching the BLD dripping from its maw. This night Lycanroc even has an exposed brain. A pack of Rockruff follows it out of the portal, glowing red spirals in their eyes. They begin to maul civilians, bringing the bodies to their leader. In the west, a bulldog beast leaps through the portal, landing on 2 legs. It has golden tusks and fangs, sparking with electricity. A collar covers part of its pink fur, showing the electric organ forced into it. Electricity arcs up to the golden implants in its brain. This grand bull sniffs the air before diving into a pile of rubble at lightning speed. It tears through it, slaughtering the few survivors left in it. Finally, in the center of the city, a blaze soars out of the portal. Its once orange body is now made of orange-magenta scales. The tail it had now lengthened, with a still burning tip. 2 draconic wings are now made of pure psychic energy, letting it tear through the sky. Magenta flames burn on its skull, covering its brain from anyone who dares gaze upon it. Charizard roars, spreading its wings in the sky. All the flames in the city turn magenta as it exerts its control over it all. The flames start to hunt down any survivors. The slaughter begins. Izuku stares up at the sky, seeing what has become of this Charizard. It's one of the Mew DNA ones, isn't it? The anger that's been festering in him starts to climb up to the surface. Apex nods. Remember, you two focus on evacuation dash. Evacuating what? Monoma steps forward, gesturing at the destruction around them. People are dying left and right, and these monsters are hunting them down. We need to focus on capturing them. He looks Apex in the eyes. He sighs, pulling out some soul orbs. Fine. You two have permission to engage in combat. Do not make me regret this. He slams them down, a pack of wolves forming out of the asphalt and tearing through the moving flames. Loki forms into an old hero, Poseidon. Monoma grins. We won't. Please let this work. He touches Loki, his grin widening as water bursts out of pipes below the gas lines. Izuku tosses out all his Pokemon. Listen up. You all are to try and protect any survivors and lead them out of here. Mighty, he turns to him. You and Nebi go to find Ida. His internship is here. Mighty nods. We won't let him die to his own selfishness. He picks up Nebi, the two of them disappearing. Shadows cover Izuku's fists. Alright, time for a fight. He teleports into the sky, a shadow punch knocking Charizard backwards. It breathes out thin flames, surrounding him. He manages to teleport away right as they burst into Inferno. A pink glow surrounds him, his only warning before Psychic hits him from all sides. He groans as pain shoots through his bones. Fire Blast just barely goes over his head before he teleports. Charizard roars, firing several fire blasts at once until they mix together, forming into a burning white blaze. Izuku teleports onto its back, but the attack tries to follow. Before it hits, a burst of water from below extinguishes it. Thanks, Monoma. He grips onto it. Stay still. He crunches onto its shoulder, holding on as it tries to throw him off. Electroweb shoots out his fingers, wrapping onto its face and shocking it as he places a hand on its back. When he tries to purify it, one of his eyes suddenly goes black. The hell? As he's distracted, it throws him off. Arceus appears in his. Thou is attempting to use purification. That is good. Unfortunately, thine ability seems to be ineffective against Mew DNA beasts. So what do I do? He tries to use Electroweb to swing back up to it, but the lack of depth perception makes him miss. He teleports, using Lick and wrapping the ghostly tongue around its tail, SWNG back and forth to dodge flames. The blackness fades from his eyes. When he looks around, one of his empty Pokeballs glows. Got it, catch it? He launches himself into the air. Flames rise into the sky, chasing him as they form into one massive claw. He pulls out the Pokeball, now pure white with Arceus wheel marking it. Creation Ball. He throws it as strong as he can. It tears through the flames, hitting Charizard right in the brain before pulling it in. Izuku teleports to it, holding it shut with his hands as he falls through the air. Come on. It finally clicks shut, letting him teleport down to the ground. All the flames it once controlled now turn to regular orange fire. When he looks back, Apex is now using horses made of water to put out these flames. Meanwhile, Monoma is using it to carefully uncover survivors and bodies. Loki transforms into a Chansey to heal them, letting Chip lead them out of the city. He looks in the distance, focusing his aura reading. He can feel a beacon of hatred and despair. Izuku teleports, rage burning in his heart. Denki watches his mentor distract this mutilated Granbull. Mirio keeps getting hits in, but it just doesn't seem to be dealing lasting damage. While they're keeping it occupied, he keeps helping survivors out. Zip Zap uses her surprisingly strong electroweb to pull rubble away so he can help any survivors get out. The smell of death is nearly sickening. The BLD and rot permeate the air, making him want to vomit. But he has a job to do. Denki runs to a survivor, helping them out of the rubble. "Come on, you have to get out of here." He helps them walk, smiling as they thank him profusely. "Alright, just have to get you to the others, Dash." BLD splatters onto his face. He slowly looks to his side, only to see a headless corpse falling to the ground. Granbull stands over the body, his hands soaked in BLD and viscera. Denki reaches up, wiping something off his face. He sees a bit of pinkish-gray brain matter, vomiting on the ground. Part of him wants to give up, to cry and let himself die. But then he looks up, seeing the taunting grin from Granbull. Looking further away, he can see Sir Night Eye, a gaping hole in his eye. He has one thought. What would Midoriya do? As Granbull rears one of its paws back, Denki shoots forward, grabbing onto both of the golden tusks. Instead of letting his quirk shoot out, he uses it to pull. Electricity surges into his body, getting pulled directly from the organ in its eye. He screams, his muscles burning as the charge flows through them. Once he has enough, he lets go, pulling back a fist. "Now it's my turn." His fist surges forward, slamming into the X-shaped scar on its stomach. It's sent flying back, but it lands, snarling as it glares at him. Denki cracks his knuckles. Everything hurts like hell, but he feels powerful. "Let me put those training exercises to the test." He grins. Mirio pops out of the ground. "Kahai, no. You need to follow your orders, Dash." "F orders. It's locked on me now." He makes eye contact with the monster, both of their bodies crackling with electricity. He always was a bit of an adrenaline junkie, but this? It felt amazing. Reiku the hero dashes to meet Granbull the beast, and the clash continues. Setsuna leans off the edge of a building. "You know, I didn't expect our battle to go like this." A good half of her body is missing. Eraserhead sighs. "Trust me, I would have chosen any other option if I could have. Unfortunately, that thing's quirks aren't easy to erase." He hops down, directing any civilians towards a way out of the city. She's busy using chunks of her body to distract the horde. They leap after each chunk of meat, barely missing it as they're led in circles. It's like playing with some dogs. The Rockruff are at least mostly normal, just trying to use bite on anything they can fight. Lycanroc is the main problem. She's barely distracted it from tearing into a small child, and she can see some dried BLD coming off its mouth. A Rockruff tries to attack Eraserhead, leading to her focusing on distracting it. Part of her calf leads it away to the rest of the pack. Wait, where's Lycanroc? She desperately looks around. Right as sharp teeth sink into her shoulder. Motherfucker. She splits that piece of, using it to throw Lycanroc off the rooftop. It takes everything in her not to scream out even louder as she feels every bite, every tear as it consumes her shoulder. Setsuna looks at it, tears leaking from her eyes. Her BLD pours out of its mouth, even as it tries to slurp up as much as possible. A crazed expression covers its face. It dashes forward at inhuman speeds, leaping into the air to chomp at every single piece she has out. Unlike the flash of pain from Bakuga's explosion, these spikes of pain with each bite last so much longer. Lycanroc finally gets all of them, turning to her with a feral grin. Stalker slams a rock smash into its jaw, sending it to the ground. The entire horde turns to face it, growling loudly. When Lycanroc stands back up, its eyes glow red with rage as it howls. Eraserhead crouches down beside her. "You did good. Take your time to rest, Fragile." He turns to the battlefield. Stalker! For the first time, she sees him grin just slightly as he points a hand at the battlefield. Use capture aura. Aura begins to flow to Stalker as he responds to the custom move. The aura begins to shift, forming into black energy, matching the shape of Eraserhead's capture weapon. Setsuna sits up slightly, smiling a little despite the pain. Oh hell yeah! She watches the horde clash with Stalker. They just need to buy enough time for backup, or for Stalker to win. She just hopes Midoriya is okay. Mighty leaps through the air, Nebi held in his arms. Ida's aura pulses through the air, nearly tangible hatred and despair overlaid with another aura of pure hate. He pulls from the aura, using it like fuel as he kicks through the air. Once he dives into the aura itself, he practically fires off like a bullet, rolling into the landing. The sight he sees makes him snarl. A hero, one that he remembered Izuku calling native, is slumped against the wall, though his aura shows that he's still alive. He tosses Nebi at him, letting them teleport to safety. Ida is lying on the ground, glaring up at a serial killer. Stain stands above him, holding a katana as he rants and raves about false heroes. Seeing this madman about to kill a child pisses him off, but that isn't what makes him snarl. Instead, it's what came out of Ida's plain pokeball. A simian creature, one with a round body covered in shaggy gray fur that turns white at the tips. Shackles wrap around its ankles, the right arm having a shattered shackle while the left lacks one at all. Its eyes glow red with rage, the only other color on it being the pink pig-like nose. Veins on its face throb with hatred. An Annihilate, one that is surrounded by the dark mist that signifies a shadow Pokemon. Mighty crouches down, forming a ball of aura in his hand as he looks at the Annihilate. Stand down, I'll handle this. I just need to stall long enough. I hate this. Annihilate slams his fists into the walls on either side of him, forming small craters. Training day after day after day after day. And he didn't even bother to give me a name. Instead of listening, he stalks towards Stain. The killer points his blade at them. Back off, beasts. I have a duty to fulfill, and I will not let you both keep me from it. Mighty tosses the aura sphere. Instinct makes him use Quick Guard, Stain's katana striking against the translucent barrier. He strikes with quick attack, barely tearing his scarf. Annihilate raises his fist as knives fly towards the two of them. F-off. The dark mist turns into purple blades, connecting to his cuffed arm with chains. They slice forward, the wind pressure sending the knives tumbling to the ground. Cracks run through the ground from where Annihilate stands. He'll destroy the alley at this rate. Mighty snatches the plain pokeball off Ida, recalling Annihilate. The pokeball violently writhes in his grip as he ducks under a blade. He uses aura to hold it shut, metal claw letting him block a katana. Stain leaps off, tossing a blade at Ida. Bone Rush forms bones in his grip, letting him smack it out of the air. When Stain rushes at him, he uses the bones, parrying him and managing to barely hit the man in the side. Impressive, beast. I haven't had a challenge in years. I may spare you, but I can't let you stop me. He throws a handful of kunai forward. He forms aura into a shield, letting it block all the blades. A blade cuts some fur off his ear as Stain leaps over him. Force Palm knocks him back for a second before he has to dodge another katana swipe. He just needs to hold out long enough for Izuku to get here. Teleport can tend to struggle with distance depending on the strength of the user. Despite this, Izuku forces the move to go further, to find Ida. Once he finally manages to use the move, he's greeted with Mighty on the ground, Stain looming over Ida. Ace dashes forward with quick attack, the killer barely dodging. Ida glares up at him. This is my battle. Go help civilians and weasel into someone else's business. He steps forward, placing a foot onto Ida's back. Shut the F up. The coldness lining his voice feels unfamiliar even to him. Despite how much you've made me hate you, I'll save you. Because that's what a real hero does. He looks up at Stain. The serial killer steps forward. Yes, the words of a true hero. We shall battle, and the weaker one shall be called. I don't intend to give up my mission. He leaps forward. Izuku teleports behind the man, throwing an electroweb at him. Mighty, Tell me anything you can. He opens his mask, dragon breath coming out to knock the villain away. A quick dive to the side barely lets him avoid a kunai slicing his cheek. His quirk is activated by consuming the BLD of the victim. The effects feel like when Tayumi freezes me. Mighty's voice echoes in his mind from the aura speak. He's fast enough that some of his attacks function as priority moves when I used Quick Guard. Along with this, I have Ida's Pokemon restrained in his Pokeball. He's feral, and with this effect, I can't hold him much longer. He stumbles at that last bit of info, feeling a blade slice his cheek. Stain is on him in seconds, his tongue darting towards his cheek. He opens his mouth, spitting out an ember to force him back. With a small moment, he teleports, using soft-boiled on Mighty. Please work, please work. Mighty stands up. Why don't you have Ace teleport them out while we fight him? They can take the Pokeball to sheet. He pulls them both to the ground as purple blades slash at the air strong enough to nearly knock them over. Izuku face palms, wondering why he didn't think of it earlier. Ace, teleport out the injured. Ida tries to protest, but he and Native, who he didn't even notice until now, got sent away. He's suddenly glad he did that. Battling Stain is a nearly 4-foot-tall ball of rage in a Shadow Annihilate. He made my Pokemon a Shadow Pokemon. Piece of dash. A blue paw lands on his shoulder. Save it for after you live through this mess. He forms an aura sphere in his paws. I'll try to restrain Annihilate, you two get Stain. He forms the sphere into a web of aura ropes, forced into the shape. Izuku nods. Got it? Ace flies forward, disarming voice startling the killer. Izuku forms ice energy in between his hands, holding it before firing a beam of rainbow energy, freezing the killer's teeth. A knife hits him on the teeth, bouncing off of his costume. He reaches down, tossing handfuls of toxic garbage for gunk shot. Stain tries to slash at Ace, only for her hex to make the killer scream as his poisoned wounds throbbed. A knockoff from Ace sends his knives flying off his body, but the man rushes forward, katana in hand. Fairy wind forms at his hands, getting tossed forward to slow him. Stain leaps forward, slashing at Izuku's open mouth. He screams as his mouth is torn open on one side, BLD pouring into his mouth and down his face. When he reaches up to touch the wound, he nearly vomits. He can feel his teeth through the open gash. The hero killer steps back. No. A true hero like you cannot die just yet. I'll alert paramedics as I hunt that fake. He licks the blade, crouching and preparing to escape. A shadowy hand grabs the man, forcefully yanking him into the abyss of a portal. Izuku watches the portal close before he can even do anything. Ace touches his face, soft-boiled slowly closing the wound. When that isn't enough, he has to use the move on himself too. He touches it, feeling the raw flesh. Mighty slams the Annihilate into the concrete, using the Pokeball to recall him before holding it shut again. I've got him. Go do what you need to do, I'll go with Ace. He grits his teeth as he stands up. Ace, go to the injured civilians. They need some healing. I'll go purify the others. Ace teleports herself and the other Pokemon away as he starts running. The more he sprints, the more prominent his injuries are. Some of the hits from blades are definitely going to bruise, and the healed wound still aches. Despite his draining energy, he keeps moving forward. He finds Chip along the way, helping out civilians. Come on. It's time to purify some things. Once she runs to him, he teleports them. Tokage turns to him on the rooftop he landed on. Hey, Greenie. Here to purify this thing? I haven't been much help, Stalker is doing most of the work. He looks down, watching Stalker use a custom move with aura stands that look almost like Aizawa's capture weapon. Lycanroc struggles against the restraints, all the Rockruff chewing on the strands. Izuku smiles at her. Hey, you do much better against people that function on more than just instincts and bloodlust. Just rest, I have a plan. He uses soft-boiled on her. She sighs with relief, most of her body healing up. Thanks. I'll still keep an eye out for you though. Chip, you can handle the Rockruff, right? She nods, leaping down and getting their attention. She stomps down, bulldoze shaking the ground. He teleports, landing on the back of the Lycanroc. One palm pushes on the back of her head, purifying light slowly coming from her. Lycanroc tries to toss him off, howling loudly, but the restraints keep her held down. The light starts to spread, filling Lycanroc's veins and slowly creeping through them. It's almost like watching cracks grow on an egg. Chip yells out. When he looks over, all the Rockruff now have max stats thanks to the call of Lycanroc. They swarm her, but they're knocked away as she's engulfed in light. Everything about her just gets bigger. She grows a good 2 feet taller as spikes poke out of her upper arms and thighs. As the light fades, a Garchomp is revealed, roaring as she stomps with bulldoze, knocking them all over. Chip grins, knocking them down whenever they stand up. Izuku smiles as he turns back, watching the light start to glow brighter. He's tossed off, landing on the ground. He has to roll to dodge a rock heading straight for him. Damn it! An electroweb fires from his hand, sticking her to the ground. Lycanroc tosses chunks of concrete into the air, falling down with rockslide. Izuku dodges as much as he can, but one slams into his back, knocking the wind out of him. Gah! He teleports before more can hit him. Izuku falls on top of her, gripping tightly onto her head, letting the light shine and blind them all. He falls to the ground beside an unconscious Rockruff where she was. The other Rockruffs suddenly stop, the glow fading from their eyes as they look around, confused. He whistles to call them over, the horde gathering around their unconscious and unevolved leader. He reaches out, straining himself to teleport the horde into Nedza's office as Aizawa walks over. Thanks, kid. Stalker was about to give out. Stalker willingly retreats into his Pokeball. Go, we'll handle the civilians here. Don't need a kid doing more of my work for me. Izuku nods, using soft boil to heal his spine a bit. Good luck. He hops on Chip's back, grinning as she leaps into the air, gliding on the wind. A nameless beast stands in a void of writhing shadows. He made me train so much, I trained until I bled. And yet he never seemed happy. He always wanted more. He slams against the ground, feeling the Pokeball shake. When I wanted to play with the other Pokemon, I was denied. When I wanted a break, I was denied. When I wanted a hug, I was denied. I needed to get stronger, he said. I'm sick of it. He slams again, glaring at the shackle on his arm. The shadows twist to his desires, pushing against the ball containing him. They want to contain me? My body couldn't contain my rage. You think this ball can? A cracking sound echoes through the void. The shadows fade, cracks glowing on the Pokeball. Wrong. In a flash of light, the Pokeball shatters. He falls to the ground, surrounded by random humans. The Lucario from before stares at him. Hey, calm down, we can handle this peacefully. His unshackled fist grows, shadows filling his veins as he punches that jackal beast into the concrete. When he sees Lucario try to get up, he holds his fists together, slamming them down strong enough to create a burst of shadow. When he looks down, the Lucario has fainted. Now I can finally dash. Something slams into the back of his neck. Gah! He snorts with rage, ghostly shadows coming from his nostrils. He has to duck to dodge another attack, turning around to see who did it. A ghostly haunter floats in the air, a mixture of dense purple and light blue smog. I think you need a nap. He slams his fists together. No, I need revenge. His anger forms into blades chained to his shackle, slashing at the spirit. They weigh him down, keeping him from dodging a confused ray. The world spins around him, leaving him stumbling as he barely keeps his balance. A long, ghostly tongue shoots out at him. He tries to yank on it, but just grabbing it makes his hand numb before it pulls him forward. Let me go. His hatred coats his body. She dodges his shadow tackle, sending him to the ground. Acid sprays onto his back. I never like using that. Rek can handle the taste, I can't. She sticks her tongue out in disgust. Instead of focusing on the pain of the acid or the sting of even more hits, he focuses on his rage. All of his anger and hate flows through his veins, covering his unshackled fist in a layer of black. Rage Fist turns it into a dark purple shine, shimmering with power. When he looks up in the sky where Haunter is floating, he doesn't see the Pokemon. He sees his trainer in his mind. He throws the punch. A glow of purple engulfs his vision, the force of the move nearly knocking him to the ground. Instead of satisfaction, he feels pain. So much pain. He screams as his arm is kept in the air as the shadows still burst from it, a burning pain engulfing his fist. The light fades, but the pain still throbs through his arm. The fur and skin was peeled off by the shadows, leaving bloody muscles barely contained by the shadows. Why? I just wanted to make him hurt like I did. I just wanted to not feel so hateful all the time. The edges of his vision start to go black as he can feel himself about to faint. The haunter floats to him. Hey, I got you. It's okay. He stumbles, tripping forward as waves of exhaustion hit his body, mixing with the pain. The last thing he sees before falling unconscious is the gentle smile of the haunter as she catches him. Izuku hops off of Chip, looking at the battle in front of him. Kaminari is clashing with a mutilated Granbull, electricity dancing on their skin as they beat each other deeper in the crater they made. He spots Sir Night-Eye in the distance, his aura flickering as he gets closer to death. Teleport lets him get over there fast enough. Come on, you're not dying today. He grabs him, using soft-boiled. While it alone can't heal such a massive wound, it can keep him alive for long enough. Lemillion. He forces even more energy into the wound so the effect doesn't fade if he goes to fight. Mirio pops out of the ground. Arceus, we've been trying to capture this thing, but it breaks through all our restraints. Pokemon being called things make his anger flare up, but he pushes it down. I'll purify it, but you need to rush Sir Night-Eye to the triage station survivors are at. He points at the man. Luckily, he doesn't question it, just picking the hero up and starting to run. That lets him turn his attention back to the main problem. Endeavor breaks through the rubble, sending a plume of fire at the Granbull. If it wasn't for where she was standing, it would have hit Kaminari too. Granbull howls with pain as flames sear her back, the sound making his hands turn to claws. He slams into Endeavor with teleport. You were ordered to capture, not kill. What the hell? The mockery of a hero glares at him. Just because you have a soft spot for these monsters like your own doesn't mean they should live. He stands over him. You and your other beasts would be expelled by now if UA would give me the DMN camera footage. Anger boils in his mind, his claws growing sharper. An appealing melody gets sung from above, laced with sing. Endeavor barely has a chance to react before he drops to the ground, asleep. A cloud swoops down to the ground. Bueno, that's Nimbus? You evolved. Nimbus, now an Altaria, grabs onto Endeavor's shirt, struggling to pull him into the air. Izuku nods. Yeah, go ahead and take him away. I'll handle the purification. He turns around. Kaminari and the Granbull are standing apart from each other. Granbull's back is burnt black. Even her legs are burnt enough that she can barely stand. He carefully sneaks over, placing a hand on Granbull's shoulder. She tries to protest and fight, but she just falls to her knees. Purifying light consumes her in just a few minutes, leaving a small snubbull where she was. Kaminari crouches down to look at her. She's missing her legs. Snubbull's back is covered in raw skin, and her legs were apparently too damaged to be purified with the rest of her. Along with that, her little fangs are still made of gold and she has tiny golden claws that normal Snubbull wouldn't have. Finally, under her frilly blue collar, the electrical organ can still be seen on her CST. Izuku picks her up, teleporting her like she did to the Rockruffs. Alright, that's all the Pokemon here that I know of. Tokage's head floats over. Hey, something's coming for you. I don't know what the hell it is, but you gotta go. Her body reforms under her. He focuses on his aura sensing, feeling a very faint one coming towards him on the ground. What the hell? Instead of running, he watches. Something far too dark hops between shadows, the same shade of the shadow arm. Then it leaps forward, landing in his shadow. Sheet dash, a shadow arm grabs onto his forearm, pulling harshly. He almost stumbles into it, but Kaminari grabs onto his shoulders to stabilize him. Kaminari tries to pull him back. Come on, we need to get away from this. You aren't getting kidnapped today, man. An electroweb from Zip Zap wraps around his waist too. Whatever it is yanks harder, making them both stumble. Body parts slam into him, pushing him back. Tokage's floating head grins. Come on, I had to help some. Her body parts push against him, slowly pulling him back. A haunting cackle echoes from the shadow as the creature crawls out. A massive body with wisps coming off of it, made of purple smog. A haunting grin gleams with yellow-stained teeth. The red eyes shine, unnatural yellow rings for pupils. Where he expected a golden ring on the forehead, there's a brain hidden in the smog. It's a mega Jengar, but so wrong. Before he can try to purify it, the wisps coming off its hands wrap around his elbow, cutting into his suit and digging into his arm. He reaches out with his other hand, glowing with purifying light, but the shadows easily wormed away from his hand. It yanks him forward, but his friends keep him stable. The more they pull back, the tighter it grips. Come on, come on. He stomps on the ground with bulldoze, but it doesn't seem to be hurting it. BLD drips from his arm as the tendrils cut deeper. Tokage pushes him back, though she grimaces at the bees. That Jengar is really persistent. But we're making progress. Why does it have such a strong grip? Kaminari wraps his arms around his waist, tugging him backwards as more shadows rise up from the darkness. Jengar cackles, dense shadows gripping tight on his elbow. Izuku falls back, landing harshly on the ground. Gah! He looks up, only to see the other two staring forward with horror. He looks over. Jengar holds a human forearm in its grasp, quickly pulling it into the shadows before disappearing. He slowly looks down at his own arm. Everything below the elbow is gone, leaving a bloody stump. No, this can't be happening. I'm just seeing things, right? It's an illusion. Both of his friends stare at him, the horrified expression never leaving their faces, too shocked to even move. Izuku fumbles with his one working arm, ripping his cherished ball off his belt. He headbutts it, letting the light pull him in. As soon as his feet hit stone, he breaks into a sprint. Arceus. I need Arceus. He loses balance, tripping and slamming his face into the ground. Izuku pushes himself up, stumbling into the shine as BLD drips down his face. He collapses at the shrine, falling to his knees. Arceus, help me. I don't want to lose my arm, please. Despite his begging, he gets no response. The deity could be distracted, busy handing matter in the universe they rule, but he doesn't care right now. I can't lose an arm. Prosthetics can't replicate quirks, and it probably wouldn't function as well. Pain finally hits him. His stump throbs with agony, the pain shooting up his whole arm, even with nerves that aren't there. Every bit of breeze that brushes against his stump feels like something is grating on the exposed nerves. He reaches out, grabbing onto the edge of the shrine to keep himself stable as pain throbs through him. Izuku forces himself up, taking shallow breaths. He looks at the flowers blooming from the Shire as he pulls his arm back. Before he can slip into unconsciousness, he slams his stump into the center of the rainbow flower. Setsuna looks down at the pokeball. He'll be okay in there, right? Soft-boiled can probably heal him. Her words sound fake to her own ears. Kaminari crouches down, looking at the cherished ball while gripping his knees tightly. I don't know. If only I could have just reacted faster and attacked it before it could grab him. Hey, don't blame yourself. Plus, it didn't get hurt by the attacks from Midoriya. She puts all her pieces back together, putting an arm over his shoulder. How the hell were we supposed to expect a Mega Jengar to hunt him down? Even she could barely keep up with the shadow. He puts a hand on his head. How did they even get a Mega? We don't have Mega Stones or anything here. Are they even required? He wipes away his tears. She moves his hand before he starts pulling on his hair. I'm sure he'll go on a whole rant about it when he recovers. Kaminari goes to speak, but stops. Then he scoots back from the ball. What's that noise? A crackling noise comes from the ball, getting louder and louder until an ultra wormhole appears above the cherished ball, rainbow energy pouring out of it and engulfing the ball. Arceus had been keeping an eye on a mystery dungeon universe, watching the fight against a primal Dialga. It wasn't too dangerous, so it was mostly for entertainment. After handling an issue in the universe where Team Rocket managed to take over the planet, this seemed like a nice vacation. Victorious villains have a tendency to reach for God eventually. The battle went well, as it has in the last 1,000 universes it occurred in. Arius was at peace for a moment. But then a call echoed through the void, straight from the offering made by the one bearing their name. Arceus had torn through the void, back to the land they did not belong in to try and fix what had happened. But even a deity can make mistakes when rushed. The wormhole torn through the void made a temporary path, pulling others into wormholes forming all over Japan. Arceus tried to pull as many of them back in as possible, but something always slips through the cracks. Consciousness comes slowly to Izuku. He expects to feel wooden floorboards underneath him, but instead he feels a soft mattress. The steady beeps of a heartbeat monitor are what makes it click that he's in a hospital. He opens his eyes, hissing at the light above him. Muscles ache with soreness as he sits up, especially his. He shoots up fully. My arm. Izuku looks down, only to see some type of metal cast encasing his left arm. He can still feel something under it. Finally, you're awake. Kaminari sits up in the hospital bed to his left. You were out for a good 10 hours, we were worried. Zip Zap sits on his shoulder, drinking some electricity from him like usual. Tokage's head lands on his lap. Yeah, especially since the doctors refused to tell us anything. Monoma looks over from his hospital bed, hooked up to N4. I had to hear what happened from these two. I worked myself half to death with that quirk so I couldn't come help. Loki lays on his 60. Izuku blushes before glancing over at all his pokeballs laid on a table. All of them are okay, right? Kaminari nods. Yep, they're all safe in there. Chip saw what happened and told the others, so they went back into their ball to be with you. He leans back on his pillow. What happened to me? His cherish ball is sat with all the others. My arm is back? Maybe? And I don't feel nearly as bad as I should after using that much energy. Most of the moves he used, he went a little overkill with, mainly because of the lingering anger. Tokage looks up at him, letting her head float. Well, an ultra wormhole opened up above your ball. We saw a beam of rainbow light engulf it, and then we all passed out. Apparently we were too close, and it used some of our energy to heal you? Luckily Ace apparently managed to heal us all up. Zip Zap bites on one of Kaminari's scars, making him wince. As for your arm, it was like that when we woke up, so we don't know what's up with that. He puts Zip Zap in his palm instead. Monoma sits up. I had barely managed to get the two of you into an ambulance before I passed out from quirk exhaustion. Before he can respond, the door opens. A man with a dog head in a police outfit steps in. Hello, students. I am Tsuragami, the chief of the Hosu police precinct. Yesterday was a rough day for all here. One of his ears is missing, half of his head wrapped in bandages. He steps forward. You took down these beasts and battled the hero killer, yes? UA truly does have the top dogs. The small smile he had falls off. Speaking of what you did, quirks have been heavily regulated. While they can be used safely by heroes, civilians using them could lead to chaos. Tsuragami looks over the three of them. That is why these laws were made. And no matter the situation, they must be followed. Izuku steps up, ready to defend his friends. The chief of police yelps, leaping up onto the windowsill. A concrete but functioning vacuum cleaner comes in the room, Apex following behind. I was trying to talk to you before you chewed out these kids. He sighs. When everyone looks at the vacuum cleaner, Apex just shrugs. Quirk Dog Soul. That somehow explains everything and nothing. Aizawa walks into the room, a bandage wrapped around his head. The chief has a tendency to tunnel vision on things when it comes to law. He looks at the students. You were reckless, but you did good. You're all going to Hound Dog when internships end though. They all wince. The concrete vacuum leaps out the window as Apex takes the soul back. As I was trying to say, I gave my interns permission to fight. I believe the others did too. Aizawa nods. Night Eye limps into the room, his torso wrapped with bandages. My intern was meant to prioritize the rescue, but he could fight if needed. He fought well. The hero leans on the wall, glancing at Izuku with curiosity and conflict uncovering the previous feelings. I do wish you would avoid making me act like this in front of civilians. Tsuragami slowly gets down, his paws still shaking. Apex puts the soul orb on his belt. It happens to be too amusing to pass up. Tsuragami looks back at the students. I guess I don't need to give you the talk then. I'll still give credit for this to Apex so you kids don't attract too much attention. You all did Hosu a service? He bows before leaving the room. Once he's gone, Aizawa shuts the door before looking at them. If you're wondering where Ida is, you were separated from him because I noticed the hostility during class. Nedzu is investigating. Izuku sighs. That'll be interesting. He looks down at his arm. Could any of you explain this? Sir Night Eye points at a line of latches on the cast. Open it. It'll be easier to manage if you go ahead and see it. He coughs up a bit of BLD, wiping it away. He reaches with his good arm, slowly undoing the series of latches. There's another line of them on the other side, so he does the same there, his anxiety slowly building. It opens up. Instead of solid pale flesh like he expected, it's something entirely different. From the elbow down, his arm is made of light green sludge, forming the rough shape of an arm. Some of it drips off, but it seems to evaporate as it hits the ground, his arm never really losing mass. What the F dash? Aizawa points at it. When you came out of the pokeball, your arm was like that. At first I thought it was temporary, but from what the others said, it isn't. We did try to figure out what it was though, and he looks at Monoma. Monoma sits up a bit more, Loki sitting in his lap. The arm has some of your DNA in it, but it was mixed with something else. We weren't sure at first, but they checked. He sighs. The closest match was ditto DNA. Izuku looks down at his arm. He tries to focus and make it normal, but it only solidifies the shape, not changing the color. Then he thinks about a random Pokemon, Miraidon. The slime turns to solid steel, a purple forearm with 3 metal claws. When he touches it with his other hand, it feels like cold steel. He curls the fingers, thinking of Regigigas. Plain white flesh replaces the purple metal. A couple black stripes cover it, and his wrist is covered by a large yellow band. He closes the 3 white fingers into a fist, staring down at it. Surprisingly, the size still fits his body. I don't know how to feel about this. It's cool, but also my arm is gone. When his focus slips, the arm turns back to goop. Aizawa nods. That's understandable. When you come back to UA, we'll give you some physical therapy to learn how to use it. He rubs his eyes before pulling out a bottle of eye drops. Tokage grabs her head, putting it back on. Probably not the time, but I have to ask. What about our internships? Cancelled. Aizawa leans his head back, putting the eye drops in his eyes. The rest of the students still have theirs, but after what all happened, the doctors want you under observation. Don't worry about taking up too much bed space. 5 hospitals from different cities are taking in the injured from Hosu. He puts the bottle away. Kaminari sighs. Dang, I was looking forward to learning more too. Maybe if I did better dash. Night Eye places his hand on his shoulder. You fought well. Keep practicing what you learned and I have no doubt that you'll become a great hero. You all did well. While you shouldn't have had to experience this, I am proud of the results. Apex turns to the door. Let's leave, the kids deserve a chance to rest. He walks out, gesturing for the others to follow, which Night Eye does. Aizawa glances back at them before leaving, his grip on the door tightening as his gaze lands on Izuku's arm. He nods silently before leaving. Izuku tries to turn and talk to his friends, but a wave of exhaustion suddenly hits him. I think that shifting took a lot out of me. He lays back, his eyes feeling heavy. He drifts off to sleep, hearing his friends telling him to rest. Katsuki leans against the edge of the ring. Everything aches, sweat covering his body, but it feels good. Usually people can't keep up with his battle stamina long enough to give him a true workout, and while the nerd and some of his classmates can barely match his, the rabbit exceeds his. Mirko stands up, looking down at him. While fighting is fun, that's not the only reason why you're here. You're an a-hole like me. He immediately groans. Don't tell me you're going to tell me I need to become nice and sweet like my first therapist did. I'd rather blow out my eardrums than listen to that rant again. He pushes himself into a standing position. She barks out a laugh, putting her hands on her hips. Oh F no. Those idiots can F right off. A sweat rag flies at him while she grabs her own. I'm just trying to make sure. You become an a-hole hero instead of a dickbag hero. She grins. The FS the difference? He can tell there is one, but not what the difference actually is. Mirko starts to wipe sweat off her face. Simple. A-hole heroes are like me, dickbag heroes are like Endeavor. Get the gist? Once she's wiped off enough sweat, she steps out of the ring. He finishes using his sweat rag too, following her out of the ring. You don't actively ignore fans and brutalize villains like him, but you also don't act all cute for the public like some heroes. I remember you kicking that one dude in the ball. They go through a door. Both of them step into an apartment. No windows because it's in the basement, but it has the essentials. Oh yeah, that prick was asking if I had a breeding season. She groans. Katsuki snorts. Oh yeah, absolutely deserved. But how are you gonna teach me sheet on this? He plops down on the couch that he slept on the previous nights. Surprisingly comfy, makes it easy to crash after training. She grabs her phone off the table. Well, later we're gonna go help with Hosu. Mainly just some manual LBR. Her phone case has a massive crack on it, which is nothing compared to her phone screen. You're gonna watch me interact with any media or civilians that approach. Think about how you'd react and contrast it with how I do. I don't want you to copy me, just understand the changes you'll need to make. His stomach growls loudly. Their breakfast being just protein bars didn't help. That's nice and all, but if anyone tries to talk to you when you're probably as hungry as I am, there's gonna be a new media scandal. Oh, absolutely. Mirko cackles as she types on her phone. That's why we're gonna eat some pizza first. Got any specific sheet you want? She sits down beside him. He thinks for a moment. A sheet ton of bacon and deadly levels of skis. You think you can handle it, bunny? He grins at her. She gives him a feral grin as she places the online order. Oh hell yeah. No one has matched my spice tolerance before. Hope you don't turn out to be a Pages. You're on Rabbit? He leans back, turning on some shitty detective show with her tiny but TV. Mina plops on the ground, groaning. This is more difficult than math. Why can't I find a weapon for me? All these seem to just make me fight worse. She still feels embarrassed about tripping over the staff. Your type of quirk does make this more tricky. Snipe flips his gun around in his hand. That just means we should go with more unique weapons for ya. He walks over to a box, ushering her over. She grabs what's handed to her, examining the studded club. Yeah, this definitely isn't for me, even the normal club SCKS. Any swords are tossed out, along with staves. Guns were way out of her league too, especially with her aiming games. Oh, this could be fun. Mina walks over to the dummies. She starts whacking them with the WHP, grinning before frowning. Feels too short. I want more range. She tries out a couple more WHPs, but they all feel like they're missing something. The chain ones were also just too heavy and would tend to throw off her balance just enough to be a problem. Snipe sighs. Well, gotta try the silly one. Cancer. A yo-yo? It's made out of metal with a durable type of string, but it's still a yo-yo. I guess it wouldn't hurt to try? She swings it out, watching it slam into one dummy. Twisting to the side, it hits another in the neck, wrapping around before pulling it to the ground. It feels weirdly responsive, but I'm not complaining. She pulls it back to her hand. He chuckles. You're darn right, and there's a reason for that. Your great-grandmother used that weapon. Her DNA is woven into the fiber string. She was a beast with that. I'm surprised it worked so well for you. Ooh, if I get my own, it'll be even more responsive? I think I've found the weapon for me. She grips it in her palm. Maybe with this, she'll be able to protect her friends next time. Shoyuta stands outside the hospital room. In there is not only his student, but also the brother of one of his few friends. He takes a deep breath before walking in. H and FFS sit around Ida's wrists, keeping him on the bed. The window was also both reinforced and bolted shut. He sits on a chair beside the bed. Are you going to stay long enough for me to explain your punishments, or are you going to try and escape again? One hand is still holding his capture weapon just in case. Ida sits up as much as he can, looking away from him. Only if you tell me if Stain was killed that night. He was taken by the League involuntarily. Aizawa sighs, rubbing his temple. Ida grips the sides of the bed tightly. I should have killed him while I still had the chance. He uses his shoulder to push his glasses up. Shoyuta pulls out a paper. Well, let's start with the one good thing for you. You're not expelled, if only because the league would target you. He refused to lose any students to them. You have two choices: stay in the hero course with heavy stipulations, or go to general studies with no chance of being a hero. I want to be a hero. Ida looks him in the eye. I knew there would be consequences. I'll take anything you give me, sensei. His hands are open on the bed. At least he isn't trying to lockpick anything this time. He flips the paper around. First off, detention for the rest of the school year. You'll be spending this time learning about what it really means to be a hero from a special instructor. He shakes his head when Ida tries to respond. No, that's not all. You aren't allowed to interact with any Pokemon or enter the hatchery. Along with that, your Pokemon no longer belongs to you. He leans back. Ida nods. I understand. I agree to all of these dash. Still more. Aizawa puts the paper down. You will not be allowed to participate in hero training for a month, instead spending that time learning from other teachers. You've lost the trust of staff and students, so prepare to experience that. He takes a breath before continuing, looking his student dead in the eyes. Finally, you will have to do lots of community service over the next 3 years. Violate any of these, you're sent to Gen Ed, violate them again and you're going to Tartarus for at least a couple years, since it's the only prison secure enough to be safe from the League. That's all. He leans back, letting him process it all. Ida takes a deep breath before looking at him. I accept these terms. This wasn't exactly official, of course. He was just sent to inform him of these now because Netsu knew that he wouldn't be the best at communicating it nicely. You and your parents will sign papers with Netsu on this when school starts back up. Shoyuta stands up, heading towards the door. Tensei would never want this from you. You can do better. He leaves the room. Earlier, post-Hosu, All for One takes over the body of an Electabuzz, walking over to the doctor. How well did our shadow do? Must be good if you called me over. The doctor nods rapidly. Yes. We expected just some DNA. It did manage to collect some leftover BLD as expected, but it went beyond. He turns around, gesturing at a tank. A disembodied arm floats in the fluid, preserved for now. This was unexpected, but quite a good surprise. He walks over to the tank, pressing a hand on the glass. Can the quirk be extracted from this? There have been some quirks that could at least be copied from a limb. A shake of the head confirms what he expected. No. Unfortunately, we cannot. The quirk factor relies on the whole body, quickly degrading when disconnected. However, he turns on a screen on the tank. He glances at it before grinning. Reading about the differences from when it was obtained, it's clear that something is different. Interesting. From the limited information we could get before, it seemed that the raw energy was limited to mostly the BLD, with some useless specific reserves. But this? The doctor grins. Yes. It seems that the energy leaked into the rest of the limb without the BLD being regularly pumped. From bone, to muscles, to skin, all of it was brimming with the energy they needed. This is going to increase our reserves. This should help our progress. What did you do with the other gift Shadow got? He follows the doctor into another room. Stain, the former hero killer, lays unconscious on the wall. Chains keep him suspended in the air, while an 4-drip keeps him asleep. He works as a good test subject? The doctor chuckles. He still hasn't forgiven that man. He made Tomura doubt himself. His vessel needs to be single-minded, an easy soul to override. What are you testing? You never mentioned any human experiments specifically. The doctor points at another 4, filled with rainbow energy. Infinity Energy's effects on the human body. With this much, survival will lead to a feral beast on our hands. But that's perfect for chaos, and gives lots of data. Without his quirk, that is the best use for his body. A loud beep echoes from the other room. Going back into the room, bright red text glows on the central computer screen. The other screens around it have data flowing in faster than the eye can read. Tension. Spatial tears have been detected through satellite readings. Data points the site of origin to be Hosu City. Tears have been identified to be spreading over time. Visual reference being constructed. Identification type, ultra wormhole. Number of tiers, error. Current furthest point, Kamino Ward. Estimated beginning, 1721. Energy leak readings. 90% atmosphere air. 5% elemental energy. 4% other. 1% infinity energy. Log time, 1803. He steps forward. Why did the log come 40 minutes late? If there are ultra wormholes, we need to know. We could get more resources. He's been dreaming of a moment like this for centuries. It appears that most of our cameras that could read this information were destroyed in the blast. The doctor quickly types on another screen. It had to rely on the tools located in the satellite we had access to. A map loads up onto the screen, red dots showing the location of the ultra wormholes. I expected more of a ring shape, but that looks more like cracks expanding. When another dot appears in Kamino, he feels it. Not from here, but from his real body. I have to go. Electabuzz drops to the ground like a puppet with its strings cut. All for one feels the aches and pains of his mortal body once again. His sight quirk turns on, letting him watch a body drop out of the ultra wormhole before it closes. Oh, you're an interesting one. I wonder which region you come from? Anyways, Tomura needs new friends to keep him on track, and I think you'll do. They crawl away, cowering from his presence but not making any rash decisions. Here we have quirks. Biological superpowers. He holds up his hand, letting purple electricity crackle between his fingers. I do wonder, how compatible would someone from another universe be with quirks? A speed quirk burns through him. All for one dashes forward, picking them up and holding them by their forehead. I really hope you live through this. Their screams echo through the room as a quirk forces its way into their Deni. Izuku sits up in the hospital bed. He's been spending far too much time looking at the news. Mighty even tried to take the phone from him. He just can't help his curiosity. They've been calling what happened the Hosu bombing. Makes sense, since the bombs did the most property damage, even if the Pokemon killed the most. Some people tried to say the heroes should take away his Pokemon, but Netsu shut that down immediately. Hosu turned from a nice city to a blazing war zone. Even now, they hadn't managed to put out all the fires, some embers still growing under piles of rubble. Seeing this just makes the urge to hunt down the League. Shigaraki would be fine, but he just wants to let his claws slice through everyone creating these until there's nothing left. Looking down, he sees draconic claws coming off the fingers of his right arm. But on his left, he sees the arm of a Drudigan, claws brimming with draconic energy. It barely feels like his arm anymore. As the arm melts back to slime, there's a knock on his door. Izuku! It's his mom's voice. Come in. He lays back, focusing to make his arm camouflage with the bed. She doesn't need to see him like this. She walks into the room, Mighty following beside her. Tears leak from her eyes as she comes closer. It nearly gave me a heart attack when I heard you were there. Why were you even in Hosu? Izuku looks up at her. Someone warned me beforehand. I couldn't just stand by and do nothing. He grips the sheets tightly. They deformed more of my Pokemon. I had to save them. He hears his mom gasp. When he looks down, his left arm now the furry white limb of an Absol, claws tearing through the sheets. His mom grabs the arm, watching it melt to slime. What happened, Izuku? Please, be honest with me. Steely determination fills her eyes, just like when she's working on emotional cases. Mighty pats her back. Tell her the truth. Lying would only hurt her more. That my arm was ripped off. He takes a deep breath. It was a twisted Mega Jengar, coming out of the shadows and trying to drag me down. I had to go into the Cherish Ball, calling for Arceus to help me. This was the most that could be done. She wraps her arms around him, pulling him into a tight hug. You don't have to be strong around me, baby. That's all he needs to break down, letting the tears flow freely as he sobs into her shoulder. He hugs her back, listening to his mother's soft words that he hasn't heard in far too long. Izuku walks into one of the training gyms. After a bit of observation, they were deemed good to go. They went back to UA, which means he has a chance to learn how to use this. Alright, can I still use moves with this? The slime morphs into a muscular Machamp arm. He makes a fist, punching a pile of rock with rock smash and watching it all shatter. Good. Let's try some more. He forms the orange arm of a Charizard, trying to focus dragon energy into the claws, but it fizzles out. How weird. Maybe because it's not a dragon type, even though it can learn it. The orange melts into green before becoming the arm of a Kamao, covered with a set of thick scales. Izuku raises his arm, dragon energy filling his fingers as he slices down with Dragon Claw while also making the scales clang together loudly. Ow. He reaches up with his other hand, rubbing his ear and only seeing a little bit of BLD. Note to self, include ear protection in my costume, that hurts? He sighs. Will TM moves work? Need one with a TM only move, got it? His arm changes to the feather-covered blue arm of Roaring Moon. He goes to a dummy holding a knife, slapping its hand with a dark infused grip as he uses knockoff. And there goes the knife. Alright, that works. What if the type matches, but it doesn't learn it? Instead of the expected wing, his arm turns into the leg of a Zapdos. Maybe instead of just forming the arm, it forms the most useful body part of the Pokemon? If there's any logic to this at all. He holds up the armed limb at a dummy. Sparks weave between talons into a web. Electroweb fires out, growing as it falls on top of the dummy. The arm turns back to green goop. Okay, so type seems to be the most important part. Now for more testing. The arm of an unbound Hoopa forms, black claws at his fingertips. He presses the claws together before opening them wide, watching a portal ring grow, another one forming across the school grounds. That'll be useful for some situations. Circuitry. Next, the flesh shifts to black wires held together by zip tie bulbs. A moment of focus makes the ties melt away, leaving the wires free. Izuku raises his arm up, a wire wrapping around a bar as he yanks on it, pulling himself into the air. He falls back to the ground, rolling before using the wires to capture a dummy, shocking it. That could be useful. If he can almost copy Eraserhead, maybe he can copy another hero. Instead of a simple limb, the body of a Centiskorch comes shooting out with no end in sight before he recalls it. I can copy Centipeder. That's hilarious but also probably useless. He chuckles to himself. He goes to form a new limb, but he stumbles. Shit. Constant suching is more draining than I thought. Izuku grabs onto the Hoopa ring, focusing as he changes the destination to his room. I don't need the limb to manipulate creations of a limb, good to know. He climbs through into his dorm room. Mirko watches as the hero finally wakes up. He floats above him, looking down. So, didn't want to listen to my advice, huh? What do you mean, that? Ingenium rubs his eyes. I wasn't exactly thinking straight. What even happened? I don't feel any pain, just a lot of numbness. He holds up his pale hand. Explaining this all is the strong part. Well, you're kinda undead now? Mirko sits on the air. I figured you'd prefer that to just being dead, Ingenium. Stabbing the blade into your soul just made your state different? He flips around. The hero raises an eyebrow. Undead? I'm a zombie. He thinks for a moment before bursting out laughing. Tenya always said I'd be the first to get zombified in our family, and I did it before an apocalypse even started. The hero chuckles before looking at him. And please, just call me Tensei while I'm off duty. He smiles. Mirko giggles a little at that before nodding and floating closer. Alright, Tensei. So, do you want to know about the state of your body or your soul first? Tensei sits up in the bed, groaning. He looks at him. Alright, I think I want information on my soul, then my body. He winces and rubs his eye. Well, when someone starts to die, their soul deteriorates to the bare essentials as it begins to leave the body. He forms a white heart in the air, making it erode away to a simple white wisp. He first learned this from being too slow to stop one robbery turned wrong. Not fun. Mirko holds the mock soul in his hands. When I brought you back, your soul was stuck between reforming and deteriorating. What you did with that blade bonded your soul to a physical object, and now it is stuck inside the blade instead of you. He reaches under the hospital bed, pulling out a katana. It has a dark blue handle, golden bands breaking up the color. A sheath made of dark wood covers the blade, designs of engines etched into it. From the pommel, a cloth extends, blue fabric with purple chain markings covering it. Most notably is a clear gem embedded in between the hilt and the blade, diamond-shaped with a purple wisp inside. Tensei reaches forward, gently grabbing it. So, my soul is in this katana? Do I have to drag it around with me? He pulls down the sheath, revealing a metal blade surrounded by purple fog. Yep and yep. Mirko sits on the edge of the bed, stretching his legs out. An invisible chain is binding you to it, and going too far from it can have negative effects on your body. He points at the fog. But at least if you intend to do a non-lethal hit, that will blunt the edge some. He pushes the sheath back up, the fog pulling back into it. I always did think swords were cool, maybe I can add it to my fighting style. Tensei smiles slightly. So, what about my body? He sits the sword beside him. Well, Izuku stands outside the classroom door, taking a deep breath. Mighty stands beside him. I'm sure they won't judge you. You already avoided them when everyone got to the dorms last night. You can't avoid them longer. A paw pats his back. He nods as Ace rubs against his cheek. Yeah, I guess I should just go in before I chicken out. He opens the door, stepping in and seeing all eyes go to him. The class bursts out in noise as everyone starts flooding him with questions. Some try to step closer, but Ecto bursts out of her ball. Haunter. She floats in front of him as a barrier, Mighty standing beside her. The window opens and a red-eyed glare sweeps over the class. Aizawa climbs in through it while the class rushes for their seats. Yes, Midoriya was at the Hosu bombing. No, you cannot swarm him with questions, the media has already tried. Izuku pets Ecto before heading for his seat. Before he can even sit, more of his Pokemon pop out. Chip throws his chair over Toga and Momo's heads, only for Rek to catch it. Nimbus curls up into a fluffy ball. Before he can protest, Mighty shoves him forward, making him fall into the fluff. You need the comfort after what you've been through. Nebi and Ace lay beside him, cuddling up to him. Toga giggles. Ah, that's adorable. Wraith was sitting in her lap, chewing on some berries. So cute. Kaminari smiles, petting Zip-Zap who's sitting in his palm. His scars were more pronounced, crawling up his neck. It looked oddly cute on him. Aizawa's glare sweeps over them again. Just because you got back from internships doesn't mean that you'll have a free class. A strip of shadow shoots through the window, wrapping around the podium. Just a moment later, Stalker swings in through the window, rolling into the wall. Class starts without any acknowledgement of that, even if Mina is trying her best not to burst out laughing. Mirko sighs. Alright, so your heart has been replaced with a flesh orb. He holds up an image of it. That little hole on it is where the invisible chain of the sword connects, feeding soul energy into your body instead of BLD. It still carries oxygen from your lungs too. Going away from the sword makes the flow weaker and weaker. You'll have to test the limits. He lays down on the bed. Tensei takes the printed image. That looks so weird. Do I still have to eat? Drink? Sleep? He holds up his arm, looking at the purple glow occasionally pulsing through his veins. The doctors were all so flabbergasted by that when they first saw it. He plays with a ball of psychic strings, almost like yarn. You need to eat, but you can also drain the life force from living things instead. He pulls out a fruit, pressing it to Tensei's finger and watching it slowly shrink and wilt. Not having water won't kill you, but it will make life more uncomfortable, so you should probably just drink some. Luckily the four was giving him fluids. Mirko tangles the yarn between his fingers. Sleep isn't needed, but it will help you heal if you're injured. He sits up. Almost forgot. If the sword gets damaged, it'll use your iron to heal it, so make sure to get lots of it when needed. So will I still be able to be a hero? Tensei looks down at his lap. My muscles have probably atrophied and I feel so weak. I can't be the hero my brother needs. He grips the sheets tightly, tears in the corner of his eyes. Floating over, Mirko puts a hand on his shoulder. Your muscles actually got stronger from adjusting to the soul energy. As for the weak feeling? I'm guessing that it's because your body is still trying to get used to it. You can still be a hero, you just need to recover first. He smiles at him. Tensei wipes away his tears, looking up. He takes a deep breath before letting go of the sheets. Thanks, kid. Sorry about that, with how much you know I forget that you're a kid and not a doctor. How do you even know all this? He holds up the book he stole. This little thing. It went surprisingly in depth. What's that? Tensei tilts his head at it. Mirko holds it closer. A book I stole from villains. It details information about Pokemon, though you probably don't know what those are. He rubs his finger on the L-teacher cover. Tensei sits up straight, leaning forward. Pokemon. Man, I used to play those retro games for hours on end. But how is that even relevant? Tenya mentioned a classmate could make them, but that doesn't involve me. Well, some villains got a hold of some of his Pokemon. They've been experimenting for years. I'm a result of that. Mirko gestures at his ears and tail. But because of how I revived you, you're now kinda a hybrid. The ghost type and steel type information were the most accurate, so I'm guessing that's your typing? There was a lot of time to try and figure it out with the hero being stuck here. He picks up his sword again. So that's why this reminds me of a honage. Tensei sits it down. Well, this is a lot of information. I'm gonna need to process it all. Mirko floats into the air, flipping once. I'll take that as my cue to leave. I need to check something weird I sensed anyways. Don't forget what I told you. Before Tensei can stop him, he teleports away. Izuku walks out of the locker room, having gotten dressed in the bathroom. His hero outfit still fits snugly on his body, covering skin. He was able to darken the tint of green in his arm, having it match with the rest of his outfit, no fabric covering it. He can still feel the eyes on him, but he tries to ignore them. All Might stands in front of the class in ground gamma. Welcome back. I hope you all got some good experience from your internships. Kavacha sits on his shoulder, dangling his legs. To put your skills to use, we'll have a rescue race. Pretty simple, just race to rescue me. He points at the area full of twisting pipes. I'll be right in the center on top of a building. This is just about speed, one group at a time. He leaps away to the center. A screen pops up on a nearby building, showing the different groups and the orders. He's in the last one. The first group is just Momo, Sato, Hagekure, Tsu, and Kaken. Momo has a noticeable amount of extra weight, so he guesses she ended up going with Fat Gum. Good, she needed it. She uses grappling hooks to pull herself along. Sato chugs some sugar and swings his arms in circles, breaking through the pipes as he sprints, Hagekure sneaking past him. Tsu leaps from rooftops past the both of them. Kaken is flying using explosions as expected. What's new is how he occasionally lands, kicking off pipes before letting loose bigger explosions. Why? He's doing it to maximize speed? That can't be it though. In the end, Kaken wins, mainly because Momo hesitated on far too many swings. She takes second, Tsu takes third, Hagekure takes fourth, and Sato takes fifth. All Might pats Sato's shoulder. Just a tip. While it may have felt faster to brute force through it all, it was actually slower. Use your strength for leaps like me, and learn to climb. Sato nods. I won't let you down, sir. On the walk back, he starts testing out different ways of leaping. Izuku can still feel the eyes on him, but he'll wait to show off on his turn. The next group clearly was meant to have Ida, Jair, Shuji, Tokoyami, and Toga, but Ida still isn't here. The other for just go ahead anyways. Kaken leans against the wall, Scorch napping beside him. Ears and arms already are at a disadvantage. They're recon, not some diamond speedsters. Izuku smiles, going to stand with him. Yeah, but look. Jairu and Shuji can be seen using Sato's path for a cleaner way through. They're being smart. Probably not intended though. I'll fix it after this round. Basically the whole class jumps as Cementos seems to have just appeared out of thin air. Clever, but we don't need the next group copying them. He sighs, walking away. Kaminari pets Zip Zap on his shoulder. That guy's sneaky, huh? With a close look, he can spot a new BRST pocket on his jacket with some batteries inside. Kirishima snorts. Yeah. You'd think a man made of cement would be a bit more noticeable, but apparently not. Tokoyami can be seen leaping off a building, dark shadow coming out to form wings, gliding on the wind. It's not perfect, he almost falls at least twice, but more stable than anyone would have expected on a sunny day like this. Wait a DMN minute. Kaken leans forward as Scorch tilts her head. Where the hell is the vampire beach? Oh, that sneaky little sheet. When everyone looks at him in confusion, he just points at one of the cameras, showing her already beside All Might. Izuku has to cover his ears from the uproar of the class surprise, the slime actually dampening the noise pretty well. Obviously she takes first place, followed by Tokoyami in second, Jairu in third, and finally Shuji in fourth. All Might turns to Toga. I know Edge Shot probably taught you faster ways to move, but how did you find me so easily? Toga points at Kavacha, ghostly most fading away to reveal Wraith, who immediately walks over to her. They switched places during the first round, and he used Shadow Sneak to make a path. Definitely tired the cute little guy out though. She picks him up. Kavacha comes out of an alley, hopping onto All Might's shoulder. I did think he was being less affectionate than usual, he chuckles. The next group is another one of 5. Aoyama, Uraraka, Kuda, Todoroki, and Kaminari. Aoyama's usual strategy of turning around and firing the beam just got him smacked into a wall, so now he's running and clutching his stomach. Uraraka sprints along the rooftops, floating herself to get across some larger jumps. Ojiro tilts his head. Is Kuda just running? Slightly faster than Aoyama, but couldn't he just have birds carry him? It'd take too many birds to carry him fast enough to outpace running. Shuji leans forward. And look closer. Some rats run ahead of him, others peeking out of holes and squeaking. Mina points at one of the cameras. Scratch that, look at Todoroki. I just expected the Ice Prince to freeze over everything. Todoroki can be seen creating ball of fire and exploding them to launch himself through the sky. Finally accepting his quirk and using it how he wants to. Izuku tries to focus on him, but his eyes are drawn to Kaminari. His body is sparking with electricity as he sprints through the alleys. He does slam into a few walls, but he pushes through it. Todoroki barely gets first by slamming into All Might's tea and falling to the ground. Kaminari takes second and immediately collapses, followed by Uraraka and Aoyama doing the same in third and fourth places respectively. Unlike Kaminari, the two of them also vomit thanks to their quirks. I meant for a more graceful landing. Todoroki stands up, brushing some dirt off himself. Somehow your tea is more solid than a brick wall. All Might laughs. I've heard that one before, though never so blunt. He places a hand on Todoroki's shoulder. No other fire user has used their quirk quite so uniquely. Keep up the good work and you won't be comparable to any other. He gestures for them to go back. When Todoroki gets back, he swears he can actually see a smile on his face. Next up is his group. Along with Mina, Shiro, Ojiro, and Kirishima. Mighty turns to him. Do you want any of us to help? Nebi can teleport you to the end, Chip can let you glide on her back, Nimbus can let you literally fly, anything? He smiles. Thanks for the worry, but I think I want to show off what this arm can do. Everyone's been staring. Izuku looks down at his own goopy limb. Better to show than tell, right? Mighty nods in understanding, walking back over to the rest of his Pokemon. Izuku walks to the starting line, waiting with the others. He looks at the first pipe above them, closing his eyes and envisioning a trick he's used in training. All of them dash forward, Izuku's arm shifting into black wires. He points it up, wrapping it around the pipe as he swings into the air. The wires of a circuitry let him swing between pipes, curling into a ball as he's shot between tight gaps. He grins at the shocked face of Shiro as he yanks himself into the sky, shifting his arm to one of a magmortar. He points his arm down, blasting flames out of it to send him even higher into the air. The yellow arm cannon melts away into the cotton puff of a jumpluff, letting him glide through the air. Once he's close to the ground again, he lets the cotton melt away, rolling onto the rooftop. When he stands up, he can't help but snort at Toshinori's shocked expression. Looking back at his classmates is better than confronting that right now though. Shiro comes in second after him, though just barely. Next is Mina, weirdly wielding a yo-yo. Ojiro comes after, followed by Kirishima in last. All Might looks at him, then looks at his arm before tilting his own head. Izuku mouths with the class. He nods. Izuku turns his arm to one of an unbound Hoopa, extending a portal ring to let them all fall through back to the main group. He's the only one to land gracefully. Kirishima falls on the rest of their classmates, causing everyone to fall over while the rest fall onto the pile. After they all get done laughing, he holds up his arm while it melts away. Yes, I lost my arm in the Hosu bombing. To get it healed, I had to call on Arceus to fix it, but this was all that could be done. Hagakure sits up in the pile. Isn't Arceus just, a video game god? Not real? Her gloves wave around. I would have thought that too, but having this, he holds up the Arc phone, makes Arceus feel pretty real. He puts his phone away in his pocket. Either I hallucinate very convincingly, or Arceus is real. While they all immediately start asking questions, he just steps aside to let All Might talk. He stumbles for a second before turning to the class. Unfortunately, serious injuries like these are one of the many dangers of hero work. They still should never happen this young though. After a moment of silence, he sighs, giving Izuku a sad look. With that said, class is dismissed. Remember, we have Hound Dog available if any of you need to talk. He leaves the room before them, nearly invisible trails of smoke following him. As they all walk, Izuku moves beside Kaken. Thanks for not asking earlier. Kaken scoffs. Are you kidding? Auntie Inko would have my head if I nagged your butt about it. Scorch leans over, sniffing the goop arm before shrugging. Izuku just smiles before teleporting away from the group.